Control Committee, which is due to the government's advice to practice social distancing, will be held virtually. The meeting is being recorded and will be available via the Council's website to be viewed as soon as possible from the meeting. Everyone participating in this meeting will be accessing this meeting from remote controls locations. Please could everyone ensure that their mobile phones are switched off to the silent mode. And please do not use a mobile phone at any time throughout the meeting. Members will have received an electronic copy of the agenda. I will ask officers to present a summary of the key points. For the recording, the agenda can be viewed on the Council's website. Members, officers, together with any public speakers, will be speaking at various points during the meeting. And those speaking may switch off their cameras at this point. But I would ask, with the exception of myself as chairperson, at any other times, keep your cameras and microphones switched off, as this will help to minimize any background noise and interference to ensure the connection remains as stable as possible. For any members and officers, excuse me, wish to raise a point or a question, yes, they should press the hands up icon on the screen at the top right-hand side of the Microsoft Teams. Excuse me. And I will come to an order. I've received requests. Please lower your hand once you have finished speaking. Please do not use your microphones until I invite you to do so. Members will note that the chat button has been disabled for this meeting. In the event the committee requires to vote on an item of business before at the meeting, the senior Democratic officer will ask you in turn to announce your vote for, either for or against abstain. I will then ask the committee's legal officer to announce the decision by the committee following the process. Officers from the Democratic Services will be supporting the meeting and be monitoring the use of microphones throughout the duration. And when necessary, make those not being used. Before we not formally commence, I will ask now the officer from the Democratic Services to announce the names of the councillors in attendance at this meeting. And I would also ask officers and any public speakers introduce themselves where and when I invite them to speak during the course of the meeting. They too should ensure the microphones and cameras are switched off or not in use. So we'll now proceed to the agenda.
Yes, Chair, can you get Mike to read out the members present, Chair, please?
No, man, you took the words from my mouth.
Sorry.
Thank you very much, Rod. Very kind of you.
I apologise.
Thank you, Chair. That would be myself reading out the attendance. So today we've got members of the committee in attendance: Councillor Baldwin, Councillor Blundell, Councillor Dendy, Councillor Edwards, Councillor Granville, Councillor David Lewis, Councillor Janice Lewis, Councillor Radcliffe, Councillor Spanswick, Councillor Sturman, Councillor Thomas, yourself as Chair, Councillor Webster, Councillor Amanda Williams.
Chair, my name Ken Watts. I'm present.
Oh, Richard, right. Sorry, Mela, I give his apologies, but you are here, Richard, are you? Richard Collins.
No, I'm here. Richard Collins is here as well.
Well, I had apologies for you.
It's the mayor is speaking to, actually.
Yeah, Councillor Watts, the mayor. I'm present.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor.
And Councillor Collins as well.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So, apologies I got is Mike Kieran and Councillor Altaf Hussein. That's the two of them and not three. Right. Any declarations of interest, please? No, I've got one. Got Item 7 and item 8, and I will be speaking. I got presidential interest I got. Right, anyone else?
Yeah.
Councillor, Mr. Mayor, please.
I had my hand up, Gary. Is Councillor David Lewis here? Declarations of interest as a member of St Bride's Minor Community Council, but take no part in planning. And it's also a personal interest, the fact that I represent BCBC on the Coity Valley Board of Conservators. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Anyone else, please?
Yes, it's Janice. Can I declare an interest, please, as being a member of the Brides Minor Community Council, but got no involvement in planning. And also I'm a community council member for the Board of Conservators. Thank you.
Yeah. Could I ask which item those declarations are on, please, Chair? Councillor David Lewis and Councillor Jack. Which item, please?
That would be on the
7 and 8, is it?
Yes, sorry, yeah.
Thank you very much.
Have a look, sorry. Yeah.
That's great, thank you.
I'm on a contest here. 3 times I got to declare interest. All right. Thank you. Anyone else, please?
Chair, I have raised my hand. It's not a declaration of interest, but I would like permission to leave the meeting early. It's probably going to be around about 4:30. I'll have to leave.
Thank you, Councillor Webster.
Thank you.
Right. Public speakers. We got the appellant, Lucy Binney. Is she here?
Yeah, I think so. I think she's here, Chair. Yeah.
Councillor Alec Williams.
Yes, sorry, I'm on mute.
Sorry.
I am here. I've just picked myself.
Lucy, breaking up, please. As long as you are here, right? Councillor Williams.
Yes, Chair, can you hear me?
Thank you. And Councillor Malcolm James.
Yes, Chair, I'm here.
Thank you. Can I have a move with the amendment sheet, please, and a seconder?
I'll formally move, Chair.
Second.
Second that.
All in favour?
Aye.
Can I speak about the minutes, please?
You
The
can,
minutes
yes.
of the last meeting do not show that I'm there, and I was there.
You was
Okay.
definitely. I can second that, Ros. You was there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Okay, we'll correct that, Chief.
Anyone else, please?
Yeah, Chair, I've got my hand up, Chair.
I can see you, yeah.
Yeah, I'm just saying, asking really, is it worth taking 7 and 8 together as they're so similar, rather than taking them as individual items?
Well, Chair, can I come in there, Chair? Obviously, you can't actually really answer that as you declare in a personal and prejudicial interest. And the answer is no, Councillor, but they are two set. I appreciate they're very similar, but as they're two applications, the committee has to deal with them separately and reach a decision on each separately, because the considerations are slightly different in each. So so I'd have to give committee that advice.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, Councillor Watts.
Thank you, Chair.
Can I come in? It's a technological issue. I'm getting a lot of buffering from members when they speak. Is anyone else having this problem, or is it just me?
No, I've got the same, Councillor Webster.
I
can't
well.
see the chair on my screen.
Same here as well.
My connection is very weak as well.
And mine.
On mine.
Will you? Listen, members,
think
if
there
you
might
think you can't hear, put your hand up and we'll stop it then until it might come back, or vice versa, isn't it?
Thank you very much.
You check that. All right, then, girls. Thank you. Councillors, rather. Right. We'll crack. Is Rod there? Roddy.
Rodri, I don't know, Chair.
Planner.
Yeah.
Jonathan?
Rodri's in the meeting now.
Oh, he's in it. Good afternoon, Rod. How are you?
Afternoon.
So, this meeting, will Lucy kick off first or me? Or Alex? Rod?
Chair, the speakers are on these, they're on item 8, I think.
Yeah, I'm on
Not
5.
item 7. Not item 7. So,
right.
Unless you want to take those out.
I'll have to leave now, won't I?
Can I ask for a point of clarification, please, Chair, as one of the public speakers?
Alex, yeah.
If you don't mind.
Oh, you carry on, Alex.
I know I'm not a member of the committee, but I just want a point of clarification from Rod, if I may, Chair. And that is, clearly I spoke on item 7 at the last committee meeting, and you chose to defer the decision pending a virtual site visit.
Yes.
However, not all members of this committee potentially heard me speak at the last committee meeting. So would it not be sensible for all committee members to be able to hear exactly what representations I made at that particular meeting, and to take item 7 and 8 together, given their
well,
Alex, yours is all in the report.
you are listed to speak on item 8,
Yeah.
I think, Councillor.
Yes, but just a point of clarification is that if members have made a decision on item 7 already, then it largely makes some of the decision on item 8 defunct. So it would seem logical, with the greatest respect to the committee, to take items together. However, obviously, I defer to your better judgment. But
Well, Councillor, I've sort of given advice on that. We can't take them together, because they are 2 separate applications and they must be decided separately. If you wish for, it'd be the Vice Chair's indulgence, because he would have to, he'll have to chair item 7 and item 8. But if you wish, you could speak on both, or if you prefer, you could speak on item 7 and not item 8. But
okay, that's very helpful, because the initial advice that I received from planning officers were that I wasn't able to speak on item 7 because I'd previously spoken on it.
Because you've spoken before, yeah. I think that can be allowed. That can be allowed, Councillor.
However, I can possibly save the committee time by solely speaking on item 7, so that you have the full picture, and not repeat myself on item 8. So ultimately, you're receiving my representations before you make a decision on item 7 and 8, rather than make decisions without me having spoken on item 7.
So we'd only hear you once.
Indeed. That's what
just to follow that point, if the committee and vice chair are happy with that, I think perhaps the lady speaking on behalf of the applicant should be given an opportunity to respond to you on item 7, because clearly, if you've just spoken, so I think she should be extended the same opportunity.
Absolutely, I'm content if you are as members of the committee.
Okay.
Of course, I'm just here as a guest.
So can we just, before we actually make that decision, as I say, no, the chair, now you want to speak, chair, on item 8?
That's it, yeah.
Yeah. So can you now declare and leave leave the meeting for item 7, and then the vice chair can take the chair?
Right. Judicial interest I got on there, and
you've got the same interest, but you are able to speak on item 8. So if you'd like to
E/20/553/full.
That's correct, Chair, yes.
So I leave then.
If you would, Chair, please.
And who's going to phone me back or vice versa? Because
I think it's Mike.
Yeah, I'll do that.
Oh,
Chair.
thank you, Mike.
When we finish with the item 7 and 8,
leave the room,
I'll invite you straight back in.
Mike, and knock the camera and sound off, or what?
If you could leave the meeting completely, and I'll send you an invite to come back in then. Is that okay?
Mike, perhaps can you remove Councillor Thomas from the meeting, because I think is. Thank you. So can I call on the vice chair, please?
Rod, I'm here.
Thank you, Councillor. Do you want to now chair item 7, please, Councillor?
Well, I haven't got a problem. If he wants to speak now, if the rest of the committee members that weren't present in that meeting, and he's not going to speak in number 8 on issue 8, well, I haven't got a problem with that, Rod.
Okay, so as long as you and the committee are happy, I think, is it Mike? Are you going to time Councillor Williams for the 3 minutes?
I believe that's the planning officer, is it, or was it yourself? I think.
No, it's not me. That's either you or Merrill should be doing that. No, possibly. Is it Craig? Is Craig here?
I understood Craig was doing it. Sorry.
Okay. Is it? Sorry,
Hi, Rod.
Is Craig present?
Hi, Rod. Yes, I'm here. I'll get the time set up ready now. We can proceed.
Sorry, Councillor. So once we're ready, you can have your 3 minutes.
Okay.
Please.
Can you hear me properly?
Yes. We can.
Okay,
Sorry,
Rod. Just give me the nod.
So if I get, sorry, Councillor Granville, I have got my hands up before we start. Councillor Alex Williams is. It's just a point of process on this one more than anything. We've got Councillor Gary Thomas that is going to be speaking on this matter, and yet we've now asked him to leave the meeting because of prejudicial. To invite him back in to speak.
Yes, he'd be allowed to come back in on number 8 to speak for 3 minutes.
But is it so? And he is not. So he's not speaking on 7.
No.
Right.
No.
Okay. Thank you.
Does that clarify that point?
Very much so. Thank you.
And can I just make clear, if you don't mind, Vice Chair, and just to see clarity from Rod, I'll be speaking on both 7 and 8 now.
Well, yes. I mean, if you have your 3 minutes, Councillor, and as I say, we can invite the applicant's agent as well to respond. So
yeah, sure. But I'm just making clear to members that I'll be speaking on items 7 and 8, so that they can bear in mind my comments, from this 3 minutes, so they don't have to hear me again on item 8. It would be rather ludicrous for that to happen. So
okay, so that's fair.
Have we got the 3 minutes ready, Rod?
Craig, is it ready? Yeah, I think we're ready, Chair, so I think Councillor Williams can start.
Right.
Okay, thank you. First, the drone footage was not a full and fair representation of the site yesterday. Please request a deferral until members have the opportunity to undertake a full site visit before coming to a decision. Second, the applicants have had 2 years at this site. There have been a number of breaches of conditions, and the applicant has provided insufficient assurances that these breaches will not continue. Third, I'm not convinced that the applicant has taken notice of the gas main which runs across the proposed area and the impact of HGVs on this gas main. Given the history of fire at this site, this is a major concern. Fourth, I see no reason why the applicant is seeking temporary planning permission for a period of 3 years for end-of-life timber. If members are minded to approve, I believe that temporary planning permission should be granted for 1 year to demonstrate operational compliance. Fifth, there is concern about the potential increase in rodents as a result of storing end-of-life timber. Members are asked to request an environmental impact assessment before granting approval. Sixth, in order to get to the land for storage, you have to cross the central area, so heavy plant traffic will be operating right behind the Mount Pleasant bungalow. I would also like to remind members that no processing permit exists on the central area. It is for vehicle parking only. So noise and dust will be increased and the disruption to family life will be considerable. An updated noise, dust and fire mitigation plans are essential prior to this approval. You as committee members need all the information before making an informed decision. Seventh, the applicant proposes an increase from 5 metres to 7 metres high wood piles. This will completely overwhelm the Mount Pleasant bungalow, preventing light and visual amenity. By allowing stockpiles to rise to 7 metres, members will also be contravening Natural Resource Wales guidelines, which says that unprocessed wood should be stored at a maximum height of 5 metres and processed wood at a maximum of 3 metres. Eighth, it is essential that conditions are placed on the applicant which prevents any grade C or D hazardous wood to be processed at the site. Ninth, the increase in capacity for the storage of waste wood will cause further pollution to our local waterways. Actual pollution is occurring right now, and this is a criminal offence. Members should insist on seeing a drainage plan before planning consent is granted. Finally, I attended a site visit on the 1st of October, during which the applicant said that unless these applications were approved, they would cancel the contract which BCBC and Kia currently have with them. I believe that this is tantamount to blackmail, and I do not believe that this applicant is fit and proper to operate this site. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Williams. Rod?
Chair, yes,
Rod?
I think
hang on now, there were some accusations made by Councillor Williams now, right, regarding what he's just said. Can we make sure that that is done right first now? Because he said the applicant threatened with taking the contract off us and other things.
Well, I don't know. Clearly, Councillor's reported what he says was said. I wasn't present at that time. But I think that members need to be reminded that we are looking here at planning matters.
Yeah.
And I don't, I don't think that's a relevant matter for the committee to consider, Chair.
Thank you for clarifying that point. Rodri, do you want to? Sorry,
I think before you call in Rodri to do a presentation, Chair, I do, as we've allowed Councillor Williams to come in on this item,
Yeah.
The list of speakers says that the agent would speak on item 8.
Right.
But I think we were expecting Councillor Williams to also speak on item 8, not 7. So I think, could you ask the agent if she'd like to have 3 minutes now, or does she wish to wait to item 8 when after Councillor Thomas will be speaking, I think.
Well, what does the agent want?
I believe she's present.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Can you hear me? I think probably as Councillor Williams has spoken now, I think I would like to take the opportunity to speak now, and possibly I don't want to waste members' time, and I'll not speak at item 8.
Thank you very much for that. You're most kind. So can we put the clock up for 3 minutes then, please? And when you see the clock, when you start, the clock will start to come down. Are you ready? Right. Can we start the clock, please?
Thank you. Thank you, Chair, members. I hope you did find the site visit useful yesterday. Certainly by watching it, I was very conscious of the extent of the legacy wood deposit, which isn't on all of the site, but is on part of the application site here. And really, I do want to stress that the mess of this wood was not left by the applicant, Southwest Wood Products, and they have no responsibility on this material at the moment. There was a lot of confusion at the last meeting about Southwest Wood Products being South Wales Wood Products. They're not. Check on Companies House and don't believe anybody who says otherwise. But moving on to this, the legacy wood is causing pollution, and this was part of the issues that Councillor Williams did mention away. There's thousands of tonnes of wood, needs to be dealt with properly, and Southwest Woods can do this. In granting this application, this will help remove some of that legacy wood. That's the wood that's next to Mount Pleasant. No wood processing operations are going to go anywhere near Wood Pleasant. They are going to Mount Pleasant. They are going to remain on the current site. This, in effect, getting rid of your legacy wood is going to be a meaningful planning game. It's, again, a legitimate objective of the planning system. And I think from last time, there was a lot of sort of crying wolf about blackmail and such like. Now, the unfortunate history of this site is not the fault of this applicant. And tragically, whatever we do here will not punish whoever the perpetrator of it. We're hoping that this application is meaningfully going to solve the problem. And yes, it will secure an ongoing wood operation, but let us remember that this is a site that already has planning permission for it. It's actually supplying Margam, helping to contribute to local renewable electricity generation. There are some points that do have to be stressed. The gas has been dealt with in Roderick's additional letter. There are no issues with the gas with our operations. No hazardous waste is going to be coming onto site. That is a permit matter. Turning to the matter of rodents, and that's also another matter for the permit that will be taken into account with this. We are going to operate at levels that are the same as just now. There's no plans to increase throughput levels, that will change traffic levels. They will remain the same, and we will have all the traffic routed on the access that is away from Mount Pleasant. I just want to say about the fire plan, we have been making improvements already to site in terms of the fire plan and managing fire at sites. We're well used to this. We've got a number of sites. Conscious about the time ticking down, you've got a comprehensive report before you. I think all the issues have been addressed. I really do hope you can support the application. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much for your kind cooperation. Before I come off, Councillor Williams, Amanda Williams, is there a point you wish to raise before we go to the officer?
Yes, it was with regards to the advice on the allegation that was made with regards to threats. I wanted clarification because as a councillor, obviously I represent the residents of the borough and I'm extremely concerned with that. So whilst it might not be a planning matter, I think it does need to be looked at by somebody in BCBC. So as a councillor representing people, I feel obligated to take this forward with someone, and I'd like some advice on how I do that. Thanks.
Okay, Rod.
Well, Chair, I'm not. say to take it forward. I think that if the councillor is to contact both the planning officer possibly and myself outside this meeting to raise any concerns which she has, and then we can discuss it and take it forward as need be, if that's helpful. But as I say, it's not really it's not a material consideration for today for committee, but we're happy to have a discussion, and I'm sure the planning officer would be, as I say, outside this meeting.
Is that helpful, Amanda?
Yes, thanks. I appreciate it's not part of the planning process, but I think as councillors, we all have a duty to our residents, and if allegations are made, we have a duty to investigate them. Thanks.
Okay, thank you very much. Right, let's move on to the main part then. Rodri?
Hi, Chair.
Let's go back over what we went over yesterday then.
Yeah, I'll do the presentations as per normal, so
thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon, members. For the purposes of the recording, my name is Roger Davis and I'm the Development and Building Control Manager at BCBC and the case officer for this site. As you are all aware, the application was deferred from the last meeting to allow members to experience a virtual tour of the site in lieu of an actual full committee site visit, which cannot be taken at this time. The virtual site visit was undertaken yesterday and the answers to the questions are included on the amendment sheet. The application was originally referred to members due to the number of objections received from local residents, the commoners and community councils, and following a call-in request by a local ward member, as referred to in the report. The application is as per the report, and the addendum note, which I hope you've all had an opportunity to read following the meeting in January, seeking to vary conditions 1, 5 and 6 of the latest consent for the waste wood processing plant at Haleoq. The conditions relate to the approved layout and plans for the site, the maximum stack heights and the range of works that are authorised on this site. As stated in the report and at the last meeting, and reiterated again yesterday, the operator must comply with conditions of their permit issued by Natural Resources Wales, including but not limited to those around maximum production in tonnage per annum. The local planning authority have to consider applications on their own merits and on land use planning matters only. It is worth reiterating again that the operation of the site is controlled by other legislation and the detailed permit issued by NRW. Whilst the consent will stipulate that the site cannot produce more than 120,000 tonnes per annum, NRW also control this output. There will be no wood storage or processing in the central part of the former nurseries part of the site, just parking and storage of machinery, and there will be no requirement to use the access to the north of the site via common land. It is also proposed to upgrade the drainage system at the front access to trap water before it leaves the site and enters the highway. As questioned and referred to in depth yesterday, the report confirms that the noise management plan will be updated to take into account the different layout of the site, any new modern machinery to be used on the site, and the proximity to the bungalow, which is now in separate ownership. Also, as questioned and referred to yesterday, the report also confirms that the previously approved dust management plan will still need to be adhered to, and the current operator has committed to replacing the damaged mesh fencing to the south of Locks Yard and to planting additional trees around the boundaries to reduce the visual impact of the site. In terms of the mechanics of the application, the original planning permission will continue to subsist whatever the outcome of this application, although this application is a prerequisite for the applicant to acquire the relevant former nurseries part of the site from the Crown and to ensure a satisfactory form of development. The consent runs with the land, and any other wood recycling company could process waste wood from the site even if the current company stops operating from here. The site layout has been reconfigured from the original consent as a result of the need to concentrate the processing and storage operations around the Locks Yard part of the site, away from the bungalow, which originally formed part of the wider site, and it should have been used as a welfare unit for staff, but it is now in private ownership. In terms of the stack heights, Whilst the current consent allows all external stockpiles up to 5 metres, the proposal is to increase this to 7 metres as the current height restriction limits the scope for the business to accommodate seasonal fluctuations of unprocessed wood, which leads to numerous breaches of planning control. There is also a requirement to separate the stockpiles, as discussed yesterday, to form fire breaks as required by the Fire Prevention and Mitigation Plan. However, there is no requirement to increase the stack heights of processed wood, as there is a higher turnover of processed wood, with only limited amounts being stored on site at any one time. As stated in the report and at the last meeting, it is proposed to formalise the seasonal preparation of domestic garden waste as part of a contract with BCBC and Kia. The material is shredded on site using the same equipment and prepared for bulk transfer to a site near wells for composting. This element of the business is undertaken at the site under a permit exemption from NRW held by the site. The condition has therefore been reworded to regularise the planning statement of the historic use of the site for this purpose. The current operator is processing wood more efficiently, as there is now more demand for the processed wood and there is less pressure on our operator or any economic incentive for them to take on and store more wood on site without having to process it for onward transmission. Previously, the operator was contractually obliged to take the waste wood, even though the demand for processed waste wood had not yet been established. In conclusion, and as explained extensively in the report, it is reasonable to vary, add to, and reword the conditions to achieve greater control over the operation of the site. The application is again recommended for approval, subject to conditions and informative notes as per the report. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you, Rod. Can somebody formally move, please?
I'll formally move the report, Chair.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. Is anybody, all right, Councillor Williams, do you want to speak? Amanda Williams?
Yes, please. I'm just trying to turn my camera on and my microphone.
Sorry, I can just see a hand.
Right. Sorry, I've got, after yesterday's site visit, I've got 2 pages of questions, but I don't know now which ones refer to item 7 and which ones are really referring to item 8, because they touch on each other, so I might have to repeat some of them. So apologies for that. But can I start with the site visit yesterday? I didn't think, and I raised these questions yesterday in the site visit, that I didn't think it did it justice. Now, I live in Coity, which is on the border of this site. I cycle past there regularly. I drive past there regularly. And I've been living here for 16 years, so I've known the site for a long time. And I don't think it does it justice. So I went down there because I said I wanted photographs because I was concerned about the heights. So I went down there earlier today to have a look. And I noticed, I was concerned, I didn't appreciate how close everything is to Mount Pleasant. You don't get that from the site. You don't get an appreciation of the height of the piles from the site. I took photographs that showed the piles to the side and to the front of the main entrance, where it's fallen over into the adjoining land, into the side of the road, into the field by the side. And it was just a mess there. Trees were snapped because the wood had pushed the trees and they were snapped into the fields. I don't know who owns the fields to the left of it. And there was a tree falling towards the highway, again, as a result of all the piles. That was a significant concern. And there was a lot of standing water. There was water, it just looked saturated, all the common land. So it's clearly drainage issues. And there was piles of wood, as if lorries had just dropped wood. And I've got some photographs of the common land, just like a carpet of wood that had been chipped down, or it was small pieces of wood. So I've got concerns with that because we didn't see any of that in the site visit. And I think, had we seen that, it's flagged for me, real red flags here. I wanted to clarify the traffic. I wanted to know what the route is away from the site, because you said it doesn't, there's no traffic should be going past Mount Pleasant. When I was there, a lorry left the site and I watched it drive down past the front of Mount Pleasant towards Brinkethin. So I wanted to check that and if that should be happening. The applicant said they'd remove some of the wood. So I wanted to know, what does some mean? How much is some of the old wood at the back? It doesn't, I've got the impression from yesterday, what we've been told, and from this report, that they will be removing all of the wood over 3 years. So I wanted clarification on some. And then you mentioned in there something about gas, and can we have an update on what the gas problem is? I said it's not been an issue and it's been dealt with, but as a resident of Coity again, I was around when we had the fire several years ago, and I couldn't open my window for over a week because of the amount of fumes and the smoke in the air. So I'm concerned now, what's this gas issue? Have our, as councillors, been told what the potential issue is? So I wanted clarification on that. And I'll leave it at that for now. I'll come back to you after.
Oh, well, thank you for that long list. Rodri, do you want to come back and answer some of them questions, please?
Yeah, that's fine. Thanks, Chair. I'm not sure if there were any questions in there. So it seemed like a long list of issues with the site, but I'll try and go through them as best I can. I was frantically making notes as you were reading it out, Councillor. Virtual site visits did not do it justice. I don't know what else we could suggest in this time, to be honest, because we're all in lockdown at the minute, and it's not possible for us to go out on site. The virtual site visit did show from eye level as well as aerial shots of the site. I'm thankful that you've gone down there today to have a look for it for yourself, which is useful for any member to do. But I understand your points about it being, to your eyes, a mess, but it is a working site, and I think you've got confused with the traffic route away from the site. What I meant was, if I can get I'll display the plan effectively here on site. Can you all see that?
Yes, Rod.
So basically, what I meant was this access out onto the main road there will not be used past Mount Pleasant. So I think you mean that traffic, I said that traffic would not be allowed to go along the front of the site there, but that's not right. That's public highway. We can't stop anyone from not using that highway. So so this is what I meant. This secondary access will not be used by the business. Obviously, you obviously mentioned a lot of the piles, and I showed a various amount of photos which are on this presentation at the last committee, which did show the piles in front of Mount Pleasant there. So these are actual, these are photos of what it looks like from an eye level view. 6 foot, sort of, that's the sort of level you'll get. What you don't seem to appreciate it is the fact that once these applications are determined, hopefully with a recommendation, then these piles of wood will no longer be allowed to be there. That's the whole point of the application site, is this area, the former Brinkethin's nursery site, container storage, visitor parking, storage of machinery. All the wood will be processed in this area. There's no processing going on in this area whatsoever, or any storage of wood.
I will ask the question now.
So I think I've answered most of the question. And in terms of the gas element, I covered that off at the start of the report. So in essence, it's not a planning matter. So, but if you have a read of the first bit of the planning report, it's all in there. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Rod. Rod?
Yeah.
Rod, not Rodri, Rod, the legal officer.
Sorry, Chair, yes.
Right. Councillor Williams has stated publicly on the web, the recording, that she cycled or went there yesterday and took photographs. That is against the rules. You cannot go there. It's against the rules. It's quite clear that nobody should go there because of COVID, right? Now, the other question I'm going to say is, because Councillor Williams has done that, can every other councillor go there and see the site? This is not I'm going to quote you now, Amanda. I'm just making a point, because I just had a couple of emails saying, can I go there and see the site?
Can I just tell you that I live in Coity, adjoining, and I cycle around there several days a week as part of my exercise. So I am entitled to go past there, because it's the only way out of Coity. I do the loop up Heel Spencer, across, I don't know the name of the road, and back into Coity that way. I'm entitled to do it. And if somebody's questioning me, I'd like to have on record here, I'd like to, under GDPR, I'd like copies of these emails to you suggesting that I've breached any rules. Thank you very much. So can we organise that?
Chair, as you asked me for advice, I mean, I think anybody's entitled to take, as I understand the COVID rules, anybody's entitled to take local exercise in their area.
Right.
As long as they start and finish at their homes.
Right.
So I wouldn't see that as a breach of the COVID rules, Chair, quite honestly.
Okay. So
I mean, as I understand Councillor Williams, and I don't know where she lives, but as I understand this is local to her, and it's from her house, and she goes around. So that would be simply leaving your house and going for a good walk and coming back. So I don't see any issue there, Chair, quite frankly.
Okay, that's fine. Let's clarify that point. Right, the next speaker then is Janice Lewis. Janice?
Yeah, sorry. Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I've got a question on the garden waste storage, actually. Can you tell me, will the garage storage, will the waste be checked for any adverse garden waste material, like I'm saying, an invasive weed, etc., that is not there at the moment alongside the common, but maybe because of the garden waste going there? I'm just sort of concerned, would it be covered, just to prevent something like what is the one that we are so afraid of at the moment? Sorry, I've forgotten the name of it now. Again, I'm sort of a bit confused there. But I'm just
Japanese knotweed.
That's it. Thank you very much indeed, Stuart. Thank you. And also, I'm concerned about the increase of rats, etc., because, you know, garden waste, it's something they like maybe to eat as well as anything else that's going around there. So I'm just concerned about that. And also, interestingly enough, the lady that spoke said there were no plans to increase the amount of traffic leaving there. So I would ask then, if there are no plans, does that mean she won't be coming back to ask for future increasement of traffic from there? Because to me, that means no plans mean that maybe in the future we will increase traffic. It's just those two things. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Thank you. Rodri, please.
Yeah, thanks, Jill. I'll deal with that last issue first of all. Obviously, nothing is set in stone. We've got to deal with this application as it stands. With a company, I presume, as it stands at the minute, they are restricted by the permit and the amount of production they're allowed to do on the site. So as far as I'm concerned, that is not a matter for us today. In terms of the garden waste, not sure if I mentioned it before, but it basically is collected at the recycling centres and then transferred to the site. So I'm pretty sure there won't be any, they won't be transferring from the council-owned sites any Japanese knotweed or anything like that across to this site. So I'm pretty confident that would not happen. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Janice, are you happy with that reply?
Sorry. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you, Chair. Yeah. Thank you very much.
Okay. Councillor Spanswick.
Thank you, Chair. I'm just lowering my hand as well.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. A couple of points. The first one is the virtual site visit yesterday. I'm not 100% happy. It's best we could do it given the circumstances, but I couldn't really appreciate site levels, especially when stack heights, but levels, and there was a lot of standing water, and I found it really difficult to understand what that site looks like from ground level standing there. and I still find that difficult to understand now. But I've driven past many years or a long time ago. I can recall it not being a very nice looking site from outside, and just looking yesterday the footage from the camera, you can see how scrappy the old site looks around the boundaries with the trees and the ragged sort of broken screen in there, which does question, hang on, if this operator's been there for a year or two, where have they been just making the site look presentable for the benefit of the community and make it look nicer? It doesn't look very well maintained and managed at present. The page 13 of the time, I'm a bit confused with these two applications, but on page 13 of the report, it mentions that members will note there will be no wood storage or processing in the former Brinkethin nursery part of the site. I got a question: is that the part that's next to the bungalow? Because it clearly is the wood storage on the land next to the bungalow and a lot of standing water. So just want to try to clarify, because page 13 is saying there will be no wood storage.
Yes, that is the.
I am in the right place. I'm right. Okay, even though there is now though. But I suppose that's because they haven't got permission to change it. The temporary consent. Councillor Alex Williams spoke, and he did mention about temporary consent. Why 3 years? Why not a year? And give the operator a chance to prove that they are fit and proper and will do the site in line with conditions. Because we haven't got a lot of officers to go out enforcing conditions, and that's a struggle in the past. So we need to make sure an operator will do what they say and what the conditions are. So maybe 12 months will be much more on the button and make sure that things do take place. The last one is the stack height. Councillor Alex Williams mentioned, I think he referred to INRW advice about not going over 5 metres. Yeah, we are looking to go to 7 metres. So I'd like some clarity on exactly what is the I'm assuming it's Natural Resources Wales advice regards maximum stack height, please.
Thank you, John. Rodri?
Thanks, Chair. Thanks, Councillor. Yeah. If you recall, before I was deferred last time, I went through all the photographs of the site, and that gave as far as I was concerned, a proper sighting of the site, and at ground level as well. Obviously, with the drone footage, it's more of a wider view and an aerial view of it, but there were instances of looking at ground level as well, if you recall. And I forwarded the virtual footage onto all members after the session yesterday, because I was conscious that probably the definition on the screen, because there's so many people dialing in at the same time, was not the best, so you could watch it at your own leisure. The broken screening is a good point. If we don't go with the recommendation today, then the condition that we've added to that recommendation will not be able to be implemented. So I would suggest that that's the best way of getting that screening back up, would be to give the operator the confidence with the applications and having the 2 consents to allow them to go forward positively with the site and carry out these works that are necessary to screen it. And it's not just the screening, it's the tree planting that they've committed to as well, which will be secured via condition. In terms of the stack heights, yeah, I'm not sure if you're all aware, but as you intimated in your little speech there, Councillor Spanswick, basically the wood that is behind the bungalow as it stands in a minute will no longer be there following these consents. It's a case that there's no wood storage or wood processing would be allowed to go in that Brinkethin Nurseries part of the site. Obviously it's there at the minute, but they can't do anything with that because it is Crown land now, so they cannot do anything with that until they get the mandate from these consents to then go into discussions with the Crown land to arrange a transfer of that land to them to be able to implement what they've got consent for. I think that was about it.
Stack heights.
So stack, yeah, that's what I mentioned. Yeah, stack heights. It is because the area that they will end up having has been reduced to the former the locks yard element of the site, and the need to comply with the fire prevention management plan, which they'll have to have fire breaks in between the stacks. And like I mentioned in the report and my presentation, that for seasonal fluctuations, particularly when the amount of wood available is at its highest, which is during the sort of late spring, summer months, rather than being in breach of the 5 meter condition as was put on there, it would make sense to allow them to do 7 meters in the locks yard only part of the site, because the area, overall area they've got has been constrained, and the fact they have to put fire breaks in between the mounds of wood. So and as I said, it's only the unprocessed wood that will be at that level, and that would be obviously away from the visual site of Mount Pleasant bungalow, rather than being right behind them as it is at the minute. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Rod.
Can I just clarify if that is in conflict with NRW advice, or the 5 or 7 meters?
Rod?
Yeah, sorry, Chair, I had to click on the 2 buttons again. Didn't expect to be back in so quickly. Basically, the planning permission is different to the NRW permit. If NRW decide that they're not allowed to go up to 7 meters, then that is what they'd have to adhere to. But from a planning point of view, bearing in mind the particular constraints on the site and the need to avoid having to go out there every other day to inspect these mounds, especially in the seasonal fluctuation periods, then we deem it reasonable to allow that extension to 7 meters as it's on a smaller part of the site. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rod. Mr. Mayor, you want to pose a question?
Yes, thank you, Chair. I've got a couple. First of all, on page 13, which is the first sheet of the agenda 7, in the report there, paragraph 3, it says that we've not been able to identify the source of the leak to date. So that gives it that there is a leak. And I know that if I had a petrol leak on my car, I would not use that car or even risk it whilst there was an unidentified leak. Therefore, on the penultimate paragraph of the same page of the report, where it's recommended a condition is added to restricting the use of HGVs, over that, I think that the word restricting needs clarifying in saying that there will be no use of HGVs over this area until the leak is found and the matter rectified. Otherwise, we're just simply running a risk. The other point I wish to make is that the dust and noise mitigation factors of the report, shouldn't they be implemented before we take this matter further? Because it is a condition, and if they don't meet that condition, then permission should not be granted. Simple as that. Third point, which is a question, a bit of simple maths here. In the amendment sheet, which was issued earlier today, it gives the wet or legacy wood at 10,000 tonnes. It also gives the mix required as 90 to 10%. Given that the yard process is 120,000 tonnes, who's got their phone on? Given that the yard processes 120,000 tonnes per year, a simple mathematical equation here shows that the 10,000 tonnes of legacy wood could be removed in 10 months, forming the 90%, 10% mix. Therefore, why is there a requirement for 3 years? Therefore, I strongly urge this committee to restrict that to 1 year. That is enough time on their own figures given. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. David Lewis next, please.
Can I answer that, Chair?
Yeah. Oh, sorry, Rod.
Yeah, I'll just touch on that 1 year and the mix and the blending that needs to be doing. I think I'm not sure if I explained it clearly enough, but it's basically, it's not 90% of the old wood and 10% of better wood. It's the other way around. So it's 10% maximum could likely be more like 5% of the wet legacy wood would have to be mixed with 90 to 95% of, albeit waste wood, but cleaner waste wood, to get it up to the level and moisture content that it would be able to be accepted by the major companies that take off the wood off this company. As there's more supply of wood now, the quality of the wood has increased over time. So basically, the people like Margam and Kronospan realize that they've got plenty of suppliers, so they can make their own demands in terms of the quality of the wood. So they're not burning, say, something with 20% moisture in. They want to burn something with 10% moisture in, or whatever. So they're always on the front foot in terms of those things. So that's what I meant by 90 and 10%. It's going to take longer, and even if they operated 24 hours a day, I don't think they'd be able to do it in a year to get rid of that waste wood at the back. Having to blend that with 90 to 95% of better wood that will also be on the site, just to get it off site and to a condition that will be accepted elsewhere, would take a lot longer than a year. And that's why we've got a condition in there about 3-year temporary consent with annual reviews of progress at every annual stage. So we've got to be reasonable about, well, there's no point in us giving them a year's contract and realizing they've only done a third of the clearance there. We just end up having an application back coming next year and then the following year. So I think we've got to be reasonable in terms of what they can actually do with that waste wood. In terms of other things, the gas leak, that's not my words, that's the words of Wales and West Utilities. They haven't found the leak yet, but I also put in there that they do not see, because of the depth of that pipe, the private pipe, 4 meters, they do not see an issue with that. But as I said before, that is not a matter for this planning application or us as a planning authority to deal with. It's a matter for the utility company and the private operator, private occupier in Mount Pleasant Bungalow. And what should be realised at this point, this is on Crown land, is where the potential leak could be. It could be off-site, it could be in the field to the west, but it is on Crown land if there's a leak on this part of the site, on the former Brinkethin nursery site. So really, there's nothing that the company can do now because they haven't got control over that land. They're not operating in that land to be able to move that wood off there. So it is a bit of a chicken and egg issue, but rest assured, there's nothing that the operators are doing now that would cause a risk to that pipe. Dust and noise, obviously over time things have changed. So the old noise management and dust management plans have now become basically defunct. So what we need to do is, once they've got the confidence of having these consents, they can plan on what the layout is now, especially now that that bungalow is in residential use, whereas where it should have been used as a welfare facility for staff, not as a residential property. And then they can basically amend those reports accordingly. And then that'll come into us as the condition and be updated, etc. I think I've covered it. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Roderick. Chair, if I can just say, well, I still feel that the condition should be added restricting the use of the HGVs, as mentioned in the report. And I still think the contract for removal of the waste wood, legacy wood, should be 1 year. And if that's not agreed, then there should be a condition that at the end of 12 months, the place needs to be inspected to see how much they've in fact removed. So that's what I would like to see. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Rod, do you want to come back on that point? I'll come to you now, Ros.
Me?
Yeah, Chair, as I mentioned.
Hang on a second, yeah. Rod, sorry, go on.
Yeah, there is a condition. We have got a condition on about annual reviews of the progress and that. And they have to provide evidence to show how much they've cleared off that site every year for the next 3 years. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Right, Councillor Sturman, please.
Thank you.
My first question is, I'd like to know how many people are actually employed on this site, because I think that's quite relevant. Secondly, stack heights. Now, I'm 1.7 meters. So the new stack heights, as proposed, will be 4 of me. Can somebody please advise me what extra measures will be taken regarding making sure these are safe, that they don't slip everywhere? Thank you.
Thank you for that, Councillor. Rod?
Yes, I'm not sure how many people exactly employed on site, but obviously there's secondary and tertiary benefits to this in terms of where the wood comes from and where it goes to. We could probably find that out. Perhaps Lucy will be able to answer that more accurately than I could. In terms of stack heights, yeah, that's in relation to the fire prevention plan. Obviously, there'll be fire breaks in between the stacks to make sure that there's less of a risk of what happened in 2016 happening again. Quite recently, they noticed some potential steaming in some of the stacks one morning quite recently, and they reacted to that and turned it, etc., to stop that from escalating. So it's things like that. The whole point is to get the separation, to stop this combustion happening and potentially causing fires. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Williams, I'll come back to you in a second. There's 2 other people that haven't had a chance to speak yet, so I'll leave you for a minute and I'll come back to you. I'm not going to, your hand is up, so leave it there. I'll come back to you. John Paul, please.
Sorry, Mr. Chair. Thank you very much. Thank you, Roger, for the report so far. I just wanted to ask, obviously you mentioned that in your answers to Councillor Watts about there is a system in place to checking how much wood they are doing. What are the repercussions if they don't meet targets? Because obviously there must be targets, because in the report it does allude to that, and in your answer it does. So there must be some form of way of sanctioning that if they're not meeting those targets. What can we do? Because I think a lot of members in this committee are indeed worried about this site, but they want to know that the backing is there, and so that if they aren't complying with the recommendations, we can take them to task over it. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, Vice Chair.
Thank you, John Paul. Rodri?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Thanks, Councillor Brindle. It's a good point. As you're all aware, enforcement is it can be a bit difficult these days, but the only way we can enforce is to put conditions like this on, and then we can put a breach of condition, take breach of condition action against them, which could ultimately end up in fines as well, so through the magistrates court. So without this condition on, there's nothing we can take enforcement action against. So if they're in breach of it, then we can take the necessary steps from an enforcement point of view. But we're hoping that over the 3 years there'll be, to the simple maths, there'll be 1/3 of the legacy wood disappearing off site within the first year, the next third gone in the second year, and the last third in the final year. So we think that it's a reasonable period of time to give them a temporary consent to actually process that wood, and NRW will not allow them to put any more wood on that site at all until that wood has disappeared. Thank you, Chair. And it's probably quite important just to reiterate as well, this wood is not getting any better. It's potentially polluted, well, it probably is definitely polluting the local water courses, and the longer it stays there, the worse it's going to get. So I think we should grasp the nettle now and try and get this wood removed from the site sooner rather than later. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Rodri. Thank you. Right, David Lewis, please.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, first of all, I'd like to thank Councillors Amanda Williams and Alex Williams for their thorough reporting on the site. Amanda, you said as it is, spot on. Couldn't fault anything you said whatsoever. The wood on the common was caused by an overturned lorry about 9 months ago, I think it was, around just after the start of COVID. my question was, one of my questions was going to be as well, if they are in breach of one condition, could they be shut down immediately? Because I think that would be the only way around it. My biggest concern, though, is the road. There's no transport plan. They said there was no need for a transport plan, which I totally disagree with. It's a B road, which is fair play. People speed along there as well, but including the lorries, and it's just not built for their articulated lorries. And I'm very much afraid as well that one day a child is going to get killed in Brinkhethin on the A461. And I cannot, with all the dangers and risks, I just cannot bring myself around to actually agree into this application. I would not be able to live with myself if anything went wrong, and I see no reason why I can support it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lewis. Rodri, please.
Thanks, Chair. In answer to the first question, no, we can't immediately shut down just because they're in breach of condition. If they were doing something illegally on the site that didn't have permission, then that would be a different story. We could issue a stop notice or even a temporary stop notice to start doing that. But no, the teeth in the enforcement does not go to that extent. But obviously we will still monitor the site and make sure that the site is operated properly. In terms of the traffic, yeah, I think I mentioned yesterday, because there's no increase in production. If there was a doubling of the production, say, then I think our highways colleagues would actually have a reason to say yes. That means more traffic, so that means there is going to be a potential impact on the highway. So we would seek a transport assessment to be submitted or transport statement or whatever. But in this instance, that's not the case. So it's a consented site, it's a permitted site as well, and as you heard from the agent, they're not going to increase that production from the site, and that's why there's no reason for a transport assessment. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Rodri. Right, Councillor Williams, please. Sorry to keep you waiting.
That's okay, thanks. I have to say, I totally agree with Councillor David Lewis with regards to the traffic. A Kia vehicle sped past me today while I was out there. And as part of one of our only access out of Coity, I often cycle this route with my children. And my 8-year-old has started joining us now, and it's really scary. It's a frightening route. My questions, I didn't have an answer before with regards to when I said what is some of the wood, because the applicant said some of the old wood will be removed, not all of it. Is condition of this planning that all of that wood is dealt with and it's all removed from there, the old wood on the other site? And also, there's a condition for updated noise reports. Is there anything, should these noise reports come back and not be appropriate, what would happen then? Is there any recourse on that and stopping anything continuing until that's resolved? Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Williams. Rodri, please.
Yeah, thanks, Jay. Yeah, at the end of the day, it's a public highway. It's not. We like we said before. I think it was at the last meeting as well. We cannot stop any vehicle from using these public highways. It's not in our remit. If they were crossing a cycleway, different story, but that's not the case. So please, by all means, take your time and be safe on this road, knowing that there are vehicles of this type using it. In terms of the old wood on the other sides, I think we are. I know we've discussed this as well as part of this presentation and discussion, but it is a separate application, and it's the one that we're going to discuss next. But in essence, that old wood will all go. It's not an option of keeping some for posterity. That the whole point of this process is to be able to get the land transferred to them from the Crown, get the permit to extend to cover that area, and to deal with this wood to avoid the pollution from perpetuating forever and a day. And in terms of noise reports, we have obviously shared regulatory services, and Helen Williams will look at these reports and see if they are reasonable, considering that there is now a residential premises bordering to the north of the former Brinkethin nursery site, and then she will make an assessment whether or not it is the methodologies and the results are correct. So if they're not, then there's negotiation and going back and forth to decide until we're satisfied with the content of those reports. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Rodri. Well, I got 3 more speakers again that have already spoken, so I'm going to ask one quick question, if I may, please, Rodri. Number 8 on the recommendations, the hours. I'm not happy myself personally with 8 till 6 o'clock on a Saturday working with lorries, because if there's more than 1 lorry in that yard or 2 lorries, how long are they going to be tipping? Are they there for 10 minutes, half an hour, an hour? I don't know. I just think Saturday should be. It's not right for as what Amanda said, for people who have got cycles for that time to be. And can we perhaps have a look at that? Thank you, Rodri.
Yeah, good question, Chair. Actually, that is the same hours of operation they had previously, and with this scheme as well, with moving the wood and any processing away from the Brinkethin nursery site, away from the rear end of the bungalow there, it will be concentrated around the smaller site of the Locks Yard bit. So I think it's because it's out of sight, out of view line from the bungalow, and the further distance and separated by the big storage building as well. I don't think there's, especially as Helen Williams, our noise specialist, internal noise specialist, hasn't made any comment on that, then there's no issue with retaining the same hours of operation. Thank you, Chair.
Oh, thank you for that. Right, Councillor Baldwin, please.
Thank you, Chair. Just give me a chance. Oh, sorry, Vice Chair. No, you're Chair today because you have been elected as the Chair in the absence of the Chair. Thank you for that. I've listened to the discussions today with great interest, and as a relatively new member of the Planning Committee, thanks to Nicole moving up to Cabinet, I took her place. I've not had much to do with this site prior to it. And while I've looked at things and listened to the people that have spoke in favour or against with the way in a variety of different things, I looked again at the drone footage this morning, which was a lot clearer in the house. And while I accept that for me as being a bit of an obsessive compulsive, the site is a complete and utter tip. However, that's exactly what the site is. It is a tip for wood to be processed. So while it wouldn't be up to my standards of organisation or needing to wear particular clothing or whatever, that's what the site is. And I've also listened to some of the other concerns in relation to the traffic and the infrastructure that's in place to manage the area, but taking into consideration a lot of our housing estates are were built without cars in mind. If somebody was to do an infill site in a particular area, would we say that they couldn't send something down that particular street because that site wouldn't have been considered for it? And so I've also listened to the advice and guidance from our officers today, and we seem to spend an awful lot of time within this committee talking about things that we are told are not material considerations under planning. And while I appreciate that people feel they need to voice these things, we heard yesterday as well, as part of the site visit, that, as part of the placemaking member development activity, that planning law is still restrictive, and we don't have the powers under planning law that a lot of people think we have in readiness for making decisions on these things. So I think if an officer is telling us that it isn't a material consideration to continue to discuss those aspects, whether they are valid complaints from the members of the public, we are wasting time talking about something that is outside of our control. I listened to what the Mayor said in relation to restrictions, in relation to passing over that small site of HGV lorries, and perhaps the word restriction rather could be replaced with prohibited, and I'd be happy to move that amendment if that is possible, and I take the advice of the planning officers to say that restricted becomes prohibited, and also recognise the other things that are happening. We have to give this new business, and again I'd listen to what other people have to say in relation to it, the opportunity to be able to get on its feet, acquire what is needed. We're never going to resolve situations while we continue to refuse planning application on this site to be able to progress and improve. And one of the other things as well is in relation to the dust mitigation and the tree planting. I think this is something they could have already been doing in preparation for understanding that we are going to be raising those concerns, and perhaps that's something that needs to be fed back to them as well. And I suppose that's probably where I'm at on this matter at this moment. I still haven't fully listened to what I've listened to what everybody's had to say, but I still haven't decided where I'm at on it. So I'm quite happy to listen to what others have to say. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Baldwin. Rod?
Yeah, the comments are noted, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Right, so we go back now to the Mayor. He's top of the list.
Yes, thank you, Vice Chair. I'm just picking up, there's a couple of things, two things, but I'm picking up first on what you said about the opening hours. Quite right, on page 39, condition number 8 says opening 0800 to 6 p.m. or 1800 on Saturday. But then I know it's in the next report, on page 59 for item 8, it gives the movement lorry movement times as 0800 to 1300 on Saturdays. I wondered why the distinction, because that shorter number of hours on a Saturday will again preclude the more speedy removal of the legacy wood. So I wondered if that could be clarified, please. And secondly and lastly, I would request that we have a recorded vote on this, please.
Certainly. Rodri, please.
Yeah, in terms of the new consent, which is a new full application for that unauthorised piece of land to the rear, the dog leg, so to speak. Yes, that's obviously a new planning chapter for that piece of land, and on our advice from our noise specialists, internal SRS, they suggested, because moving that wood from there onto the site to be processed, the Loxiata site to be processed, they will be going behind, not necessarily close to, but going behind the residential property. So so that's why she's restricted that on the Saturday's timings for that separate part of the land, but the rest of the week will be the same. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mayor. Janice Lewis, please.
Thank you, Chair. You're not going to have a traffic assessment, so do we have any data now on how many lorries are entering and leaving the premises, please? I would like that. Thank you.
Thank you. Rodri, please.
Not to hand, Chair. It's based on the amount of tons they're allowed to produce on site and move off site. So and that's the same level as permitted as has been for a while. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Stuart, I'll come to you now in a minute, but Richard Collins hasn't asked a question yet, so I'll go to Richard Collins. Richard?
Chair, I thought I dropped my hand. Excuse that.
Oh,
thank you, Chair. My question is just one on procedure, and perhaps Rod, the legal officer, could advise. I was in the discussion previously about deferring this decision, but then I couldn't attend yesterday's virtual site meeting because I was taking my father to an appointment in St. Glen Hospital. Does that affect me if this goes to the vote today? Please.
Yes, thank you, Chair. No, Councillor, I think you've clearly been here and listened to all the debate this afternoon. And as long as you're happy that you've had the full information, I think you can give a vote today.
Thank you.
Okay.
That's clear enough. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else want to ask any questions now? Councillor Collins, can you put your arm down, please? Thank you. Jonathan, do you want to come in now?
Yes, please, Chair.
Certainly.
I know there's been a request for a recorded vote, and before members do vote, and perhaps I can just sort of sum up the position and the discussion and debate that's gone over the last hour or so. Yes, members, you have got a difficult application in front of you. It is what it is. It is a recycling facility. It's not a high-tech industry. It's not a clean industry. It is what it is. It's processing used wood and using it, making it safe and useful for another purpose. It's a recycling use. And the reason that this facility is there is because of the need to recycle as part of the circular economy. It's a positive in terms of how we deal with waste. We need recycling facilities, and there is an end use for that recycled wood. It either becomes furniture or it becomes a fuel for a biomass plant, which is considered to be a renewable form of energy. It's not a pretty site, but it is what it is, and we can't get away from that. The site has had a consent for nearly 20 years for wood processing, and I can remember this site getting that planning consent at that particular time. So it's had a long history of wood processing, and that's an extant use. That use is lawful. It's nothing we can do. We can't take that away. We can't alter it. We can't stop this use taking place. There's been some unfortunate history with the site in the past, and I'm very well aware of that. I'm well aware of the issues we've had with previous occupiers on that site. We've had issues with fires, and we've had issues with non-compliance with conditions, and that is as well is something that we are very mindful of. And what we are trying to achieve through this application and the application that will be considered next is to regularise the use on that site and control that site more. Planning advice indicates that if planning enforcement is not punitive, it's not there to punish people, but we have to regularise, and we need to do that through the planning process. And this is what this application is doing. This application is as a result of the work that's gone on between your officers and the developer and the applicant in this case, and this is the result of that. This is what we do. We're doing everything properly here, and we're bringing this to you members with that in mind. This is a regularisation, and this is what we are advising you what we need to do to move forward with this site. We have legacy issues on this site, and that's going to be discussed next, but this application is also instrumental in dealing with those legacy issues, and that's an unfortunate effect. That's an unfortunate happening from a previous occupier here, and that's what we're trying to seek and trying to address through the planning process. By refusing planning consent today for these relaxations, then it's not going to stop that use. That use is not going to go away. It's not. You're still going to get the HGV movements. You're still going to get the operation, but it would make our job as officers more difficult to enforce, because the applicant in this case has been working with officers to try and secure the necessary regulation here. A refusal is not going to make that use disappear. It's still going to be there, and the difference is that we may not have that cooperation in the future, possibly, and particularly when we want to deal with the legacy issue. So that has to be sort of considered So, and really, it's down to you members, as you the decision is yours. You're the planning committee. It is you raised some very valid points today, some very good questions. I hope that the officer has answered those questions as well as possible, but it is down to you. So I will leave it there, Chair.
Thank you for that. Rod?
Yeah, Chair. Just, I mean, the Mayor's mentioned recorded vote. I mean, technically we don't do that in anything outside council, but as the Chair read out the protocol, we've agreed what will happen now is that the committee clerks will read out each member one by one, and then they should say for, against, or abstain. I'll just take a note with ticks as to how many votes in each column, and then give you the result at the end. Before we embark on the vote for this item, which is item 7, item 8 to be discussed next, just to say at the moment, we've got the motion has been moved and seconded. That's a recommendation on page 38 of the report. That is that permission be granted, and there's 20 conditions, I think. Let me just check out here. Yes, 20 conditions. The recommendation subject to 20 conditions. So various things have been discussed, but at the moment, there's no amendments to that. That's the recommendation. So just to be clear with members, if we're going to move to the vote.
Sorry, Chair. Just on a point there has been I put a proposal forward in relation to an amendment. It wasn't seconded by anybody, but I quite happily reiterate it. I have said that the word restricted is substituted with prohibited in relation to HGVs moving past the bungalow. I did ask whether that would be allowed, whether we would be within our legalities to be able to do that. So I'll take advice from Rod or Rodri or Jonathan, but I have proposed that we change the word restricted to prohibited, whether to tighten up the movement of HGVs past the residential site. Thank you.
Chair, if I come back first, I think Rodri will probably want to comment, but as far as I'm aware in this recommendation, there isn't a condition saying either restricted or prohibited at the moment. But I think Rodri should comment on the desirability and possible format of such condition.
Rod?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I think it's mentioned in the addendum note to the report. If members felt so strongly about this non-planning related matter that that there is a need to further restrict the use of, let's say, the heavier vehicles in the vicinity of the pipe, which is closer to the bungalow rather than the actual operation of the site. And as we've advised previously, this part of the site is only for storage of vehicles and machinery, parking anyway. So there's no real operations going on this site. And likewise, I mentioned earlier, the Wales and West Utilities had pointed out, I think I quoted it in the addendum, that Wales and West Utilities have investigated the leak, and whilst they have not been able to identify the source of the leak to date, they will carry on with their investigations and have confirmed that due to the depth and thickness of the gas main and the individual gas service pipe supplying Mount Pleasant Bungalow being plastic, they have no current safety concerns for the gas network located in the former Brinkethian nursery part of the site. So as far as Wales and West are concerned, they are not concerned about it due to its depth, etc. But I think later on, it's mentioned that a condition could be applied to reiterate that if needed, but members will have to decide if that is actually warranted in this instance.
Okay, hang on a second, Rodri. John Paul, you put your hand up and you've taken it down. Is there a specific question you want to ask officers?
No, Chair. I was just going to say if Councillor Baldwin is going to make that as a recommendation, I'm happy to second it.
Okay, Rod?
Yes, but from my perspective, Chair, that's fine. It's been moved and seconded. I wonder if members could just indicate, are they happy to add such a condition? I think Rodri would have to think a little bit about the exact wording, but would they be happy to add such a condition to the current 20 conditions we've got on in the report?
Yes, yes on that.
Yes, I mean.
Can individuals just say yes then, please?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
I think that's passed, Rod.
Yeah,
Rodri?
that's fine, Chair. So that then, as I say, I think Rodri would work in exact words, but
Yeah,
that might be added as an extra condition.
If I bring up the advice in the report for all to see, it is on page 13. If members feel that Wales and West Utilities advice is not sufficient to minimise the risk of future potential gas pipe damage in this area, there is scope to add a condition restricting use of HGVs on the former nursery site until the location of the leak and the private gas pipe has been established and resolved. So it's not to stop it forever and a day, it's to stop it until that leak has been bottomed out and resolved. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Are you happy with that, Councillor Baldwin, because you moved the resolution?
I did, thank you, Chair. And as like I said, it just instead of restricting but prohibiting until the issue is resolved, and I'd be happy with Rodri's wording in relation to that. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Bedell, are you happy because you seconded it?
Yes, yes, Chair. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So I think committee are then happy to add that as a condition.
Yeah.
So that'll be the 21st condition, as it were. But I think we now need to move to a vote. So is it Merrill?
Rod, can I just hold it for a second?
Yes, of course.
Mr. Mayor, you want to ask a question before we take a vote?
Yes, Chair, thank you. I just wanted to clarify, has anybody asked yet for a deferral on this again, because to allow a full normal site visit?
No.
Whether members feel that it would be beneficial, because I get the feeling that we are not totally united on this, and maybe such a full visit would help that matter.
Well, Chair, sorry, I shouldn't have. I apologise, Mr. Mayor, for cutting across there. Chair, the answer is at the moment no. Nobody has made that proposal, and I felt the committee were ready to move to a vote on the recommendation.
Yeah.
And I think, but my advice, Chair, would be that you might as well deal with the recommendation first and see if that's carried, and if not, members can then the members will then have to come up with a further recommendation in any event.
Do you want to put a proposal, Mr. Mayor, then, formally?
Yes, I would, please.
Yeah, carry on then.
Yes, I move that the committee defer this until such time as we've had a full site meeting in real time as opposed to virtual time.
Is there anybody seconding that?
My hand is up to second it, thanks.
Oh, thank you, Councillor Williams. I can see it now, yes. Okay, and Councillor Webster.
No, my hand is not up to second it. My hand is up to ask Jonathan a question, please.
Right, you may do that now then.
Thank you. Did we not have a discussion last month about deferring, and at which point it could go to Welsh Government to make a decision regardless of whether or not we said anything, please? Could you refresh my memory on that?
Yes, Councillor, I can certainly do that. Yeah, if there is the option that the applicant may appeal non-determination, if they were so minded to do. But as I've also said previously, we've been working with the applicant to this point to regularise the use there and to seek to remove the legacy wood. If we were to defer at this point, and I must strongly advise members again, there is no known date as to when we're going to come out of these restrictions. It could be a month, it could be 3 months, it could be 6 months, it could be another year. We just don't know. If we defer this indefinitely, then we are risking that these issues are not going to be dealt with timely. And I need to ask members again, what do you think you want to achieve by a further deferral? I appreciate that you've not visited this site in person, but what we've done, or what we've tried to do, is to do the next best thing and have the virtual site. It's not the same, and I fully understand that it's not the same thing, but I feel that the information that was provided through that virtual site visit was sufficient for you members to make a decision. And if this was to be the subject of an appeal in the future, we would then have to consider whether or not this was this action by the planning committee is reasonable behaviour, or rather unreasonable behaviour. And the reason I mention that there is the risk of costs awarded against us if that inspector decides to agree with the applicant in that case. It's something that you need to be aware of, and I would ask that the members that what do you hope to achieve by this deferral, and you need to certainly consider that before you make your decision on it. I'm of the view that there's enough information here before you to make a determination. But you're the members, it's up to you to decide that, and I am only here to provide you with that advice. And the decision is of course yours, and I'm only providing my professional advice there.
Chair, I'll leave it to the members to decide on that.
Mr. Mayor, oh, right, Ros, Councillor Sturman, you had your hand up.
Yes, I have. Thank you very much. I'd like to speak just for a change in support of Jonathan. I think we've rehashed this over and over again. We've had the opportunity of a sort of site visit, albeit I agree at ground level we should have had more. I would have thought that by now we should be in a position where we can make a decision. Thank you.
Thank you. Right, Rod.
Chair, well, if I think it's been moved and seconded for the deferral now.
So we have a vote on that.
I suppose that's got to be the first vote, Chair.
Yeah.
Rather than voting on a recommendation. So again, if I think it's Merrill, will call out the names of the members, individually, and then just say if you're for the deferral, just say for. If you're against, obviously say against.
What are you saying?
And if you abstain, just say I want to abstain. But I'll take down each member's vote. But this is for the deferral. So should it be deferred to the full site visit? And members must bear in mind, of course, that we have no way of organising that at the moment in accordance with the legal rules. So it's open-ended in that sense.
Yeah, thank you, Rod. Right, Merrill, can you call the names out, please? You're muted, Merrill. You're muted.
Apologies.
That's okay.
Starting from the alphabetically, Councillor Baldwin.
And just so I'm clear, I was going to vote for deferral. Having listening to Ros Sturman, I'm convinced that people have had long enough, so I'm going to vote against a deferral.
Okay.
Councillor Blundell.
Against, thank you, Merrill.
Councillor Collins.
Against, Merrill.
Councillor Dendy.
For.
Councillor Edward.
Against.
Councillor Granville.
Against.
Councillor David Lewis.
Against.
Councillor Janice Lewis.
Against.
Councillor Radcliffe.
Against.
Councillor Spanswick.
Against.
Councillor Sturman.
Against, sorry.
Councillor Thomas isn't here. Councillor Watts.
For.
Councillor Webster,
Against a deferral.
Councillor Amanda Williams,
For.
that concludes it.
Yes.
Thank you, Meryl. Rod, what's the numbers, please?
Yeah, for the deferral were 3, Chair, and against were, let me get it right, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So that was lost, Chair.
Okay, so we go to the substantial.
The substantial vote, which is the recommendation for approval, now with the extra condition added, but obviously what we discussed a few minutes ago.
Yeah.
Can you just give me a second before we start again? So I need to get my little my table in order here. But so if you're going to vote for on this occasion, you're voting for the recommendation, against the recommendation, and abstain clearly stands on its own. So perhaps we can start again, please.
Thank you, Meryl.
Okay, Councillor Baldwin.
Thank you, Meryl. And again, predicating this on the fact that I've listened to the arguments and following the officer's advice, I'll be voting for.
Councillor Blundell.
For, thank you, Meryl.
Councillor Collins.
For.
Councillor Dendy.
Against.
Councillor Edwards.
For.
Councillor Granville.
For.
Councillor David Lewis.
Against.
Councillor Janice Lewis.
Against.
Councillor Radcliffe.
Against.
Councillor Spanswick.
For.
Councillor Sturman.
Against.
Councillor Watt.
Against, sorry about that.
Councillor Webster.
For.
Councillor Amanda Williams.
Against.
Well, Chair, that vote was 7 for and 7 against. So as chair of this item, you have a casting vote, Chair.
For.
Okay, that is then carried on the chairman's casting vote. So that deals with item 7, Chair. For item 8, whilst you will still be chair, I think we need to get Councillor Thomas back because he is down to speak on item 8.
Yeah.
So if I think Mike was going to contact him, so we
I just sent him an email now. So
thank you.
Give him a minute or two to rejoin.
Thank you.
And I think if you invite Councillor Thomas to speak first, Chair, when he's available.
Councillor Thomas.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Right, we're going to get yourself set up now because we're going to put a clock up and you've got 3 minutes to speak.
3 minutes?
Okay? 3 minutes, yes, like everybody else. So can we have the clock up? Wait till you see the clock, Councillor Thomas. When you're ready, you can start.
Thank you, Chair, Vice Chair. Please find attachment some conditions I wish to make in relation to Southwest Wood Planning. P20/553/FUL. I make the request and observation as a board member for Catherine. I am aware that a number of my constituents are concerned over this planning application. Storage is a huge concern for me on this site. Your documents refer to a raw wood storage on the sealed surface and away from the water course. This does not work on this site. More concerning, a heavy dark brown discharge is leaving the site, entering the water course that flows over common land to the north of close to the B4280. An area boundary fence between the South Wales wood and the common land has been overwhelmed and buried by wood storage on the site, causing farmers to enter the site on several occasions to recover livestock. There's been several instances where lorries have overturned on the common land. There's clearly a highway problem and frequent flout of permitted hours of open and operations. I would ask the committee members to give support to my conditions listed below to ensure that all processed wood is cleared from the Crown land before raw waste wood can be stored. To ensure the operator takes responsibility for checking the cleanness of the watercourses, to grant planning for a period of 1 year, the review of progress at the end of this time. Councillor Thomas, thank you.
Councillor Thomas, still got 1 minute and 10 seconds. Do you want to use that, or are you finished?
Oh, I'm happy now, yeah.
Right, okay, thank you.
I gotta leave again now.
Yes, you'll have to leave the meeting again now, Councillor Thomas, while it's debated.
All right then. You check me out. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Thomas. Rod?
Yeah, Rodri now, I think, Chair, to introduce the item 8.
Okay, Rodri, please.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I will bring up my presentation. Bear with me. Right. Again, the application was deferred from last meeting to allow members to experience a virtual tour of the wider site in lieu of an actual full committee site visit. The virtual site visit was undertaken yesterday, and the answers to the questions are included on the amendment sheet. The application was referred to the Development Control Committee in the first place to consider the objections received from local residents, businesses, the Commoners Association, local ward members, community councils, and following a call-in request. The application is also closely related to the previous application, which related to the waste wood processing plant. The application is as per the report and the addendum note following the meeting in January, and seeks planning consent to regularise the use of this land for storage of end-of-life timber for a temporary period of 3 years. This area has been the subject of unauthorised dumping of poor quality waste wood, which will have to be mixed with better quality waste wood in order to get it to a standard with less moisture content that can be accepted and used at end users such as Kronospan or Margam. It must be stressed that, as it stands, there is no requirement for the applicant to remove and process this end-of-life timber, as the company responsible for depositing the wood has gone into administration and the land has reverted to the Crown. Following a fire in 2016, the previous operator moved the unprocessed waste wood from Lock's Yard to this unauthorised site in an attempt to save the wood and to stop the spread of the fire. Planning permission on this site is a prerequisite for acquiring this part of the Crown land and to obtain a permit from NRW to operate from there. Members will note that NRW have confirmed that no new waste wood shall be deposited on this part of the site until an appropriate permit is in place and the historic wood has been removed from the site. As explained in the report and at yesterday's virtual site visit, the poor quality of the wood in this location is having a detrimental impact on the adjacent watercourses due to contaminated runoff similar to compost leachate. NRW is currently assessing the impact this is having on the local watercourse, as well as assessing the ongoing fire risk with support from South Wales Fire and Rescue Service. In this instance, the temporary permission is required to remove the end-of-life timber from this part of the site in order to take ownership of the site from the Crown and to allow NRW to issue an extended permit to cover this previously unauthorised area of land. The removal of this end-of-life timber will bring about significant environmental benefits. If temporary planning permission is not granted, then it is more than likely that the wood will not be removed by the Crown, and the relevant public bodies will come under pressure to deal with it. 3 years is required due to the sheer volume of waste wood on this part of the wider site and the need to blend it with better quality wood to achieve the relevant standards. This is a reasonable approach, bearing in mind the circular advises that the period should be set so that is sufficient to achieve the intention of the application and to allow reinstatement of the land when the permission expires. In order to ensure that progress is being made, In reducing the amount of end-of-life timber on this site, no new waste wood would be allowed to be deposited in this area, and a condition will require the submission of an annual update. A noise assessment will be required to determine whether additional mitigation should be included in the management plan due to the close proximity of the site to the existing bungalow. In terms of the highway impacts of this specific part of the wider site, it is noted that it is adjacent to current operations and the timber is already on the site. The operators are also limited in the quantity of material that can be produced on site. In conclusion, having considered the objections to this specific application, the particular characteristics of the site, the pressing need to remove this legacy wood from the site, the advice from consultees, and having assessed this application against relevant planning policies, it is considered that there are no overriding reasons to refuse this application for a temporary permission of 3 years, subject to conditions. The application is therefore recommended for approval, subject to conditions and informative notes as per the report. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Rodri. Can somebody formally move the officer's recommendation and second it, please?
Move the officer's recommendation.
I'll second that.
Thank you. Rodri?
Chair, yes.
We go on to questions now then, yeah?
Yes, questions, Chair, and debate.
Right. Oh, Mr. Mayor, you're first.
Thank you, Vice Chair. I'm just going to reiterate my point that I made in the last report, and the recommendation 3. I suggest that is amended to read that the waste wood shall be removed from the land in its entirety, and the land shall be restored to its former condition on or before the 31st of March 2022. In other words, 1 year as opposed to 3. So I move that change of condition.
Is somebody seconding that recommendation? Mover?
Second.
Who seconded that, please?
I don't know, but I'll second it too.
Okay, thank you, Amanda. It was said so quick, I didn't. It was done. Okay, so that's moved and seconded. That's fine. Rod, do you want to answer that?
Yeah, I think you should ask Rodri in to respond to that as a proposal, Chair.
Yeah, that's what I was just going to do. So, Rodri, please.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Yes, I don't know what else I can say. I've mentioned it in my presentation and report and the meeting yesterday, and we discussed this in quite a bit of detail on the previous application, which didn't really relate to this site. But in this instance, as I've explained, and the confusion between the 90 and 10% elements, I don't think, with the best will in the world, with 24-hour operation, I don't think they'll be able to clear this site within the first year. And as Councillor Watts has mentioned earlier, there's even less hours during the Saturday because of the potential impact on the occupier of the residential property to the north. So in my professional opinion, the condition as it stands is sufficient to check up on progress on an annual basis, and a 3-year temporary permission is reasonable in this instance. And if we did only allow a year, we'd be setting the company up to fail, and they will not be able to manage the clearance of the site within a year, and we'd be looking at a new application in 12 months' time. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Rodri.
Chair, if I could just come back on that, and again, just doing the maths, 120,000 tonnes. If you look at it as 20-tonne lorries, that's 6,000 lorry moves a year. If you look at it as 30-tonne lorries, that's 4,000 lorry movements a year. If they can't move that stack with 4,000 lorry movements, then they need to get a new organisation. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Right, next one to speak, Councillor Baldwin.
Thank you, Chair. I'm just wondering, like I said, the recommendation is for 3 years. I've listened to the Mayor in relation to his restriction or his proposal to take it to 1 year, and I'm also looking at the fact that 120,000 tonnes are moved a year, and there's around 10,000 there. Again, I've listened to the officer that we don't know whether that 90% of new wood may be 95%, and I wonder whether the Mayor would be willing to accept a recommendation that that condition is changed to 2 years rather than a 12-month, whether that would be acceptable to the committee, and I'd be happy to move that if he is willing to accept it.
And I'd second it.
Mr. Mayor, are you happy with that? Are you going to rescind what you've said and Councillor Baldwin moves his recommendation?
Well, I think it's reasonable, and I think to get things moving and to have some progress with it, yes, I will concede.
Okay, is somebody did second Councillor Baldwin, didn't they?
Yeah, Councillor Sturman.
Okay, thank you for that, Councillor Sturman. Just for the record, that was okay. Right, Councillor Lewis.
Sorry, thank you, Chair. I assume we mean me, not David. On page 12 of the report, going back to my thing of transport, it says the removal of the quantity of material which has been deposited over a short time frame has the potential to generate highway concerns in respect of significant intensification of large, heavy vehicles along the B4280, which I know leads to the A4061. So I would just like to ask the question again. Will there be an increase of heavy vehicles? Because it says here there is a potentiality for it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lewis. Rodri, please.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I think the councillor is referring to a snippet of the highways officer's comments in terms of this. I think what he was trying to get at, if this was additional wood that is not already on site, then...
Have you had doggy treats since you came out? Have you?
Yeah, she has.
I think Councillor Sturman has a microphone on.
Yeah, no problem. It's okay, don't worry. It's where was I?
Put me off as well, Rod. You're all right.
Yeah, I think it's all to do with the assessment on whether there's an impact on the neighbouring highway network. In this instance, because the wood is already there and is actually transferred from the Locks Yard part of the site where it was on fire, etc. That's why there is no additional impact. They will still only be allowed to process 120,000 tonnes per year from this site. It's not in addition to, it's within. In terms of the fact that some members think that, okay, they can just do this part of the site for the next year, and then that will be the 120,000 tonnes. But what you'll have to understand is that they also take on wood and process wood on the current Locks Yard part as well. So it's not just concentrating on this rubbish wood and blending it with 95% of better wood to get the existence. They will still be processing and chipping virgin wood coming into the site, that is waste wood, to be able to provide the amount of wood that Kronospan and Margam need. Otherwise, I'm pretty sure the contract would be ended because they wouldn't be able to satisfy the demand from those businesses. So it's not just this part of the site in isolation. You've got to look at the rest of the site as well and how much that produces as well. So it won't be a case of just drilling out 120,000 tonnes of this old legacy wood, because A, they'll have to blend it, and B, they'll also be processing the rest of the wood on as it comes in. So I hope that makes a bit of sense. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Rodri. Has anybody got any questions now for the officer? Councillor Amanda Williams, have you got any?
No, I think I said enough in the first bit and I'd only be repeating myself. Thanks.
Okay. Well, I just thought I'd ask. I don't want anybody to go to a vote and you haven't asked the question. It's too late then. So if we go first, Rod, to the motion from 3 to 2, is that right?
Yes, I mean, I think that's been accepted now by the Mayor and obviously moved by Councillor Baldwin and seconded by Councillor Sturman. So that would change the relevant condition from a 3-year consent to a 2-year consent.
Yeah.
And I think that's the only amendment before committee now. So yes, we need to go to that first. I don't know if it needs to be. Does this need to be a name vote as well, Chair?
Well, yes, I suppose it does, doesn't it? We've gone through the process now, so it's just as well.
Okay. Again, let me. We'll call him there. Let me get myself in order here for that.
Sorry, Chair, just for clarity, it only has to be a recorded vote if everybody isn't in favour. So,
agreed, yes.
So I suppose the question first, Chair, is if everybody is in favour or not, and then we decide whether there's a recorded vote required.
Right. I'm happy with that, Chair. If all members of the committee are happy to go with the amendment from 3 to 2, clearly you don't need a sort of a special division then.
No. Well, can individual members then please say if they're happy for amending it from 3 to 2, please?
Yes, I'm happy.
I'm happy with that.
Happy.
Yeah, happy.
Happy.
Yeah, happy.
Yes,
happy.
Paul.
Yes.
I think that was yes, Rod.
Yes, I think so, Chair. So in that case, I think the recommendation is then amended to change from 3 years to 2 years. So on that basis, again, perhaps you can ask the committee, are they all happy to approve a recommendation subject to that change from 3 to 2, or again, do we need a name vote?
Well, you've just heard the officer. What does the committee want to do? If they wanted a recommendation to grant it, can they just please say yes, one at a time?
Yes.
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 Yes, I'm happy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think all of the committee indicating they're happy to grant to approve the recommendation, but just subject to that one change we've already agreed, Chair.
Yes, I agree with that, Rod. Yeah.
Okay, so that then disposes of item 8.
Yeah.
And perhaps we should ask Councillor Thomas to come back and chair the remainder of the meeting.
Yes, if he could do that.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, item 9.
Thank you, Rich. Can we take over now?
Yes, please.
Thanks so much to help me up, Rich. Item 9, Carver's Scaffolding, Station Road, My Stake. Sandra, when you're ready, please, but we've got a speaker and me. Councillor James?
Yes. Thank you, Chair. It's station.
Ready, Malcolm, please?
There's some feedback here, Chair. I've got a lot of feedback. I'm speaking on this application on behalf of the residents of Darrenville that were affected by the first application, which to me and to them was an intrusion on their privacy. As you know, this is an amended application which has been moved further down from their premises, of which they are now far happier, and they are not objecting to. The concerns they have raised with me and have asked me to raise with the planning is the dismantling of this very old building that's there. They will want to be kept in the loop of what is going on, because it is a very old building, once used as a bus depot, then a garage. My mic was unmuted then. So the risk probably of asbestos and the likes are there. I would just ask the planning committee if they could keep the residents and myself in the loop of when that starts to happen. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor James. Right. Sandra, when you're ready, please.
Can I ask, I really found that through no fault of Councillor James, that was really hard to hear because of the feedback. Could we have the gist of that? Because I had to take my headphones out at several top points.
Wait a second, Councillor.
Thank you.
Rodney Legal, please.
Yeah, I appreciate the point about the feedback. I think what Councillor James was saying was that his constituents or residents are much happier with the amended application, but they've got concerns about the dismantling of the old building that was there, which Alexander will talk about the use of it when she does a presentation. But there's some asbestos potentially in other matters, and they want to be kept informed of, you know, by the planning department really, and by the committee, of when they're going to be dismantling and the process. But I'm assuming there's going to be something in the conditions to deal with methods of working, Chair.
That's
but
great.
I think that was the gist of the the councillor's submission.
Lovely, thank you very much.
That's quite correct. Thank you, Rodri.
All right, Councillor Webster.
Super, thank you.
Thank you very much. When you're ready, please, Sandra.
Yeah, good afternoon, members. For the purposes of the tape, I'm Alexandra Richards and I'm Senior Planning Officer. This application seeks outline planning permission for the demolition of the existing scaffolding premises and for the erection of a 3-bedroom dwelling in Station Road, Maesteg. As illustrated on page 65, the dwelling is proposed to be positioned in the southern area of the residential plot and will have maximum parameters of 8.65 metres in width, 8.8 metres in depth and 8.6 metres in height. It will principally face the south with secondary fenestrations and openings on the northern and western elevations. The application is presented to committee to consider the objections received from local residents. In principle, the introduction of a dwelling in this location is considered to be acceptable as it is within the settlement boundary. The main considerations in the determination of the scheme are its impact upon the visual amenities of the area and its impact on the existing levels of privacy and amenity afforded to neighbouring occupiers. In terms of its visual impact, the dwelling is considered to be relatively modest in size and is in keeping with the predominant land uses within the vicinity of the site. Its introduction is considered to be a betterment to the visual amenities of the area than a vacant scaffolding premises. Whilst the dwelling is readily visible from the street scene and public vantage points, its scale is considered to be appropriate. Indicatively, the dwelling is shown to have red facing brick elevations with a grey-black tiled roof. The authority consider that the use of render, stone or yellow facing brick would be more in keeping with residential properties within the vicinity of the site, and therefore a planning condition is recommended which requires the submission of details of the materials to be used in the construction of the dwelling. Turning to neighbouring amenity, local residents initially raised concerns about the position of the dwelling as it was centrally located within the application site. The concerns related to the introduction of a 2-storey building which would overlook, overbear and overshadow properties on Darren View to the north-east of the application site. To address the concerns raised, the dwelling was relocated to the southern area of the application site to limit its overbearing and overshadowing impact on those properties. Further to receipt of the amended plans, some concerns were still raised which related to overlooking. However, as per the report, the distance provided between the proposed dwelling and properties from 70 to 75 Darren View is not considered to be so harmful to the levels of privacy currently afforded to the occupiers to warrant a refusal on such grounds. Other concerns related to the shared boundary between the application site and properties on Darren View. Whilst these concerns are acknowledged, the matter is considered to be private and can be resolved under other legislation, which in this case is the Party Wall Act. To address the concerns raised about the demolition of the existing building, a condition is recommended which requires a detailed method of demolition to be submitted prior to the commencement of development. So any demolition details will be submitted before any work start on site. The level of off-street parking and access to the site is acceptable, and the existing footway will be extended for pedestrians. So the application is considered to be acceptable in highway and pedestrian safety terms. As per the report, the recommendation is to approve the application subject to the conditions.
Thank you, Sandra. Are we going to move on a second, please?
Formally move, Chair.
Second. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
I've got.
Can I just come in?
Can you, Malcolm?
Wait
1 second. I got one speaker in front of me.
Thank
Councillor
you.
Baldwin, then I'll take them, please. Councillor Baldwin, please.
Yeah, coming in, Chair. Thank you very much. I was just given a chance to put my microphone on. I'm just wondering why obviously we've listened to Councillor James representing this area and the fact that residents no longer have any serious objections or concerns in relation to the construction of this building. So obviously, was that the reason why this came to Development Control Committee in the first place, because of the concerns? So if there are no longer any concerns in relation to what the resident are asking, is this something that could have been dealt with by the planning officer and the delegated powers? And the only other thing is, there's one question, and the only other thing, I was looking at the photographs in relation to the surrounding area where we're stipulating the use of yellow bricks. A lot of the surrounding properties are either terraced, semi-detached, or and seem to be in a white or a stone finish. So I wonder why the condition of using a yellow brick as opposed to the builder's choice of red brick. Thank you.
Thank you. So I bring Malcolm in now, and then I bring Rodney in. Malcolm, please.
Thank you, Chair. It was just a correction. The station road is Llangynnwys, not my stag.
Thank you, Malcolm. I should have picked that up as well.
And to answer Councillor Bott's request, I was asked to speak on behalf of the residents of Dallenby. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Rodney, could you come in, please?
Sorry, Chair, you asking for me or Rodney?
Rodney, planning, please. Ross?
All right.
Yes, I'll come in. Xander will know a lot more about it than myself, but as far as I'm aware, there were objections to start off with. Then we sought amendments. We reconsulted with the objectors, and then they came. They still came back with other objections. So that's what that meant, that we had to take it to committee as well, because we had more than 3 material objections. So even though most of their concerns have been resolved, they still had some issues with the scheme in terms of overlooking and issues like that. But this is an application in outline, and the reserve matters will be in a position where we can ensure that there will be no overlooking issues from this development.
Thank you.
Do you want me
I
to
got no more speakers.
Sorry,
Sandra.
Chair, yeah, the materials issues. Andrew will talk about that.
Yeah. Obviously, this application is in outline, so the detail of the finish of the dwelling will be dealt with at reserve matter stage. But the use of red facing brick is less appropriate than other things. I appreciate what you're saying about the stone and the render. The reference in the report to the yellow brick is not to put a dwelling there which is completely covered in a facade of yellow brick. It's just so that the other properties, which are stone and render, have got yellow facing brick fenestration around the windows. So rather than put in a stone elevation or a rendered elevation with a red facing brick, we would prefer it if there was yellow to match what's existing within the vicinity of the site. But like I say, that's something that is dealt with at the reserve matter stage. So we've put it on as a condition as part of the outline consent as well.
Thank you, Sandra.
All right.
I got no more speakers.
Yes, you have, Chair.
Over here, over there. Thank you.
Yes, my apologies. My whole system crashed down. I've only just rebooted, I'm blaming Malcolm for this. It was his feedback. So I won't be voting on this because I didn't hear all the presentation.
Thank you very much. Right, I got no more speakers. All in favour of the recommendation?
Aye.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Yes. Yes.
Aye.
So carry on. Thank you.
Yes.
Right. Item 10, 31 Fulmer Road, Porthcawl. Sandra again, please.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. This application seeks consent for the remodelling of the dwelling known as 31 Fulmer Road, Porthcawl, and is presented to committee to consider the objections raised by neighbouring properties and from Councillor Clark. The proposal comprises the demolition of the existing garage, the construction of a two-storey extension to either side of the existing dwelling, and the raising of the roof to create a first-floor habitable living space. The applicant is seeking to modernise the existing single-storey dwelling and create a four-bedroom property with first-floor accommodation. As per page 86 of the report, the ridgeline of the existing dwelling will be raised by 1.3 metres to a maximum height of 6.15 metres. It's important to note that the scheme has undergone significant amendment and this height has been reduced significantly from the original scheme. A street scene has been provided to demonstrate the height difference between the existing dwelling and proposed alterations. Whilst the height of the dwelling will exceed that of the properties immediately adjoining the site, it is not considered that the difference results in the introduction of an incongruous addition and is not so significant that the dwelling would appear to be overly dominant. The objections raised, which relate to the size and scale of the proposal, are noted. However, when undertaking a site visit, it was noted that properties along the southern side of Fulmer Road have been modernised and some exceed the height of that which is proposed under this application. This demonstrates that there are properties within the immediate vicinity of the site which have a higher ridgeline than that of the proposed dwelling, and therefore the scheme is not considered to detract from the character or appearance of the area. The remodelled dwelling is proposed to have white-coloured render elevations with a slate roof covering. This finish is in keeping with other properties within the vicinity of the site which have also undergone modernisation and remodelling, and the proposed materials are therefore considered to be acceptable. The impact of the development on neighbour amenity is the main reason for the objection to the scheme. The objections received relate to overlooking, overbearing and overshadowing. In terms of overlooking, the remodelled dwelling is considered to be designed appropriately to alleviate overlooking into the properties to the west, known as 29 Fulmer Road and 2 Sandpiper Road. There are no windows proposed to be installed on the western elevation of the remodelled dwelling at first floor level, and the existing boundary treatment will be retained, so there will be no overlooking from any ground floor windows. There's no windows proposed to be installed on the eastern elevation of the remodelled dwelling, and so there'll be no direct overlooking into the property to the east, known as 33 Fulmer Road. The boundary treatment on the northern boundary will be retained, which prevents overlooking from ground floor windows into the property to the north, known as 10 Teal Close. And roof lights proposed to be installed will be repositioned within the roof slope above the eye line of an occupier when stood within the roof space. This repositioning is secured through a planning condition and will ensure there is no form of direct overlooking to the north. Notwithstanding the recommended condition, the property to the north is orientated to principally face the east and west, and therefore any windows in the southern elevation are considered to be secondary. The objections received, which refer to overshadowing, directly refer to the guidance contained within SPGO2. Whilst the concerns are noted, the neighbouring properties are located to the east and west of the remodelled dwelling, and given the route of the sun, the extensions would not cause overshadowing, mainly as they are not to the south of the existing dwellings. To address initial concerns raised by the Highways Authority, amended plans were received which repositioned the integral garage and provided off-street parking at 90 degrees to the footway, as shown on page 91 of the report. The proposal is considered to be acceptable in highway and pedestrian safety terms, and is recommended for approval subject to the recommended conditions.
Thank you, Sandra. I've got no speakers. Are there any speakers there, please? I've got no speakers. Can I move in a second, please?
I'll formally move, Chair.
Second.
Second.
Yes.
All in favour?
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Right, where am I now? Item 11, Trinity Chapel, Penmont Road, Pencoed. Sandra again, please.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, me again. This application is for the demolition of the vacant chapel on Penmont Road, Pencoed, known as Trinity Chapel, and proposes the erection of a 3-storey building which contains 12 one-bedroom apartments with a shared amenity space at the rear. All of the residential units will be affordable as the scheme will be progressed by the local social housing provider, Wales and West Housing Association. Access to the site is obtained from the existing access points on the northwestern boundary adjacent to Penmont Road and on the southwestern boundary off the rear access lane. The new building will be positioned relatively centrally within the site and will be principally orientated to face the northwest. The main entrance is located on the southwestern elevation of the building to provide a central hall or stairway with access to 4 flats on each floor. Each flat comprises a kitchen, dining, living room with separate bathroom and bedroom. Externally, the building will have a combination of facing brickwork elevations and rock panel cladding in white with window and door openings in grey powder coated aluminium. The site is currently occupied by a vacant 2 to 3-storey chapel, which occupies the central part of the site. Many of the objections received from local residents of Pencoed raised concern about the demolition of the existing chapel building and its historic links to the community. Whilst it's acknowledged that the existing chapel has stood as a feature within Pencoed since it was rebuilt in the early 20th century and serves as a building where many residents have personal affiliations, the chapel has been vacant for a period of 5 years and has not been maintained in that time. It has therefore deteriorated. In addition, the conversion of the building and its existing internal layout does not easily lend itself to residential use in terms of subdivision, window positions, heating or drainage facility. The characteristics of the chapel create difficulties in achieving building regulation compliance, and whilst it is an ecclesiastical building, it has no statutory designation. As such, its removal is considered necessary to introduce 12 affordable residential units on the site. The site is within the district centre of Pencoed, which means it's identified within the LDP as an area where all new development proposals should provide retail, community and commercial floor space on the ground floor. Whilst the immediately adjoining premises are commercially occupied, the application site itself has never formed part of the retail frontage and has been the site of a chapel since at least 1897. Therefore, the proposal does not result in the loss of the retail frontage or the loss of a retail or commercial unit. Policy Com 7 of the LDP seeks to protect existing social and community facilities that provide a role in their communities. In this case, it is clear that the building has been vacant for a period of at least 5 years, which can be evidenced by both Wales and West Housing Association and the Presbyterian Church. It is considered that the chapel is no longer required for its current use due to a lack of demand, and the proposal would therefore not result in the loss of a community facility. In general terms, the residential development in this location is considered to be in keeping with the general mix of land uses within the vicinity. The surrounding buildings vary in style and in age, and there are a wide mixture of materials within the surrounding area, which include stone, facing brick and render. The developer has attempted to maintain the colour palette of the street scene and has incorporated a mix of materials to ensure the building blends with the appearance of the area and does not appear as a different form of development within the street scene. It is acknowledged that its introduction will be more prominent than the existing chapel building. However, whilst visible, it is not considered to be overly prominent and is not excessive in terms of size or scale. The scheme has been designed to integrate well with the existing street scene and character and is considered to be acceptable in design terms. The building is designed and positioned to alleviate any forms of overlooking, and the distance provided between the building and properties on Lethigh Avenue is considered to be sufficient. In terms of the amenity of future occupiers, an indicative plan has been submitted which shows that the occupiers of the ground floor flats will be provided with small private amenity spaces to be accessed directly from the living room areas of each flat. In addition, a planning condition is recommended which requires a submission of the details of soft and hard landscaping areas for the rear amenity space, and it is envisaged that these areas will include a communal growing area or greenhouse, patio areas and grassed areas for future residents to enjoy. This promotes and encourages a sense of community and social cohesion among future residents, which promotes well-being, healthier lifestyles, and accords with the key principles of placemaking. The site is within a highly sustainable area in terms of its pedestrian, cycling and public transport linkages, owing to its location within the centre of Pencoed. The development offers entirely affordable units where it is acknowledged that the levels of car ownership are less than in a private residential development of the similar nature. This, coupled with the extant use of the chapel, which could generate parking demand not only as a place of worship, but as another facility within a D1 use class, such as a creche, day nursery or museum, leads the Highways Authority to conclude that the development is acceptable from an off-street parking perspective and therefore nil detriment. The Highways Authority have raised concern about the increase in the number of delivery vehicles and quantity of household waste which will be generated by the occupiers of the building. These concerns relate mainly to the waiting time of the waste collection vehicles within close proximity of a signalised junction. The Waste Contracts Manager for BCBC has confirmed that in such circumstances it is possible to have a communal waste and recycling collection, provided that suitable waste receptacle collection points are provided. The applicant initially proposed to site the bin store area at the front of the building, but this was considered to be overly prominent and would detract from the character of the area. Amended plans were received on the 1st of March, which demonstrate the relocation of the bin store to the rear of the property, as shown on the amendment sheet. The management of the communal bin store is secured through the imposition of a planning condition, and the Highways Authority wished to note that they want to be consulted when the details of this condition are submitted. The arrangement of the bin store at the rear of the building is considered to be more acceptable from a visual perspective, and the communal collection should decrease the waiting times of vehicles on the highway. When considering the proposal as a whole, the introduction of affordable units is considered to be acceptable, and the application is recommended for approval subject to the recommended planning conditions.
Thank you, Sandra. I got two speakers.
No problem.
Right. Councillor John Pennell and Councillor Webster, please. John Paul first, please.
Thank you, Chair. It's just to say it's very disappointing to obviously lose what looks a very historical, very beautiful building in some respects, and it's very disappointing to see that there won't be more of the aspects of the original building in the new development. I do understand what the officer has said, and I take the point that obviously it's a little bit difficult being a very early 19th century building, very hard to turn that. But I just wanted to, you said in your report it is sort of in keeping with the buildings either side from the mock-up. In the pictures, unfortunately, I can't see the page of them. It is very different from the buildings either side of it. I'm just worried that it doesn't blend in as well as one would expect. That's really only my point. And obviously, it's sad to see such a historical building going. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. We'll come back to your question, Nora.
Can I come in on that, because it sort of extends from JP's point, really.
Excuse me, Councillor Webster, are you going to speak now?
Yes, if that's okay.
Right. Well, you can come in now.
Thank you very much. It's an extension of what Councillor Blundell said, actually. We all, well, the majority of us went to the placemaking training yesterday, which was very useful. And certainly one of the issues that were raised there, and an example of good practice, was the St John's development in Porthcawl, where the old house is going to be demolished and rebuilt in that style. And it's sad that that placemaking element isn't coming forward into this particular development, where it would take on something that looks like what was previously there. And yes, I do appreciate that if a building isn't in use, it'll decay and fall and what have you. And to quote Councillor Smith, who says things quite frequently, if you don't use it, you will lose it. And it's certainly the case in some churches, and I would like to see more people go back to church, but that's another discussion for another day. Another thing that I would like to just briefly mention is I certainly welcome more one-bedroom properties becoming available for for individuals and for couples, and that's a very welcome site. However, you've got 2 stories which are not going to be accessible for people with disabilities. So the developer is in fact taking a sector of society out of being able to rent this accommodation because they've not put a lift in. Is there anything we can do about that, please?
I come back to you now, Councillor. Let me take Councillor Stuart Baldwin, and then we can answer the 3 questions then, please. Stuart, please.
Thank you, Chair. Sorry, I was actually just looking at the amendment sheet and trying to look at the rear of the building where the turning area is going to be introduced. And just to be clear on the fact that while we have no parking for this particular site, if we are going to be looking at an introduction of communal as opposed to individual areas for refuse, is there a way of perhaps introducing some sort of delivery or drop-off type parking spaces at the back of that site? I actually went to school in Pencoed, so I remember this building when I was about 11 or 12. So, and I don't ever remember seeing it ever used during that time. So 5 years might be a little bit short in relation to the vacancy. It's been bought, screened up and has been an area of attraction where kids would tend to nip off to have their breath of fresh air around the back of that building, out of sight of any teachers that were out of school. I would love to see some of the stone used if it can be as part of the rebuild. But we need the new build is in fitting with the surrounding area. Right opposite this is some new build, well, I say newish build, red brick with flats above and residential. So Wales and West would do with introducing that would introduce some valuable accommodation, as Councillor Webster has said, and I hope that maybe some of those properties on a particular floor would at least be disabled. They're all going to be built to development requirement standard, so will fit the lifetime home standard. So on a certain level, there will be disabled facility properties, but I think that it's a great addition to Pencoed Town Centre.
Thank you, Rod. Stuart, Rod, you coming in, please?
Yeah, by all means, I'll try and catch up on most of those questions. Start off with Councillor Blundell's query about the ecclesiastical building. Yes, definitely, it was a nice sort of pretty building and a chapel. It just didn't lend itself, unfortunately, with modern standards and modern building regulations. It would not be easily converted, and it wouldn't provide the amount of affordable units that this scheme does at the minute. So 12 one-bed units. So it is a bit of a play-off. If it was listed or in a conservation area, a completely different story. But in terms of the design of the scheme, initially it came in as a flat roof. I'm not going to say what I want to say, but a flat roof design, which we felt that wasn't a very good solution for this site. I know it keeps the scale down, but we managed to negotiate a scheme that had 2 monopitch roofs just to give it a bit of interest, and using the materials to try and tie in with the remainder of that part of Pencoed was the best way of doing it. In terms of yes, you're right, 12 flats, no parking. In this instance, obviously the chapel, if it was up and running, or if it was up and running as something else, as a creche or something, would have required a parking input as well, and there's simply none on site. So the good thing is, as a brand new, fresh Wales and West Housing Association development, the occupiers will know right from the offset that they will not have any on-site parking available for their use. And in those terms, it's in a sustainable location, and it's not far from the train station, buses, etc., the centre, shops, facilities. So it should be promoting use of cycling with the storage in the back as well, and walk into these modes. So that's that. delivery, what do we have? Oh yeah, deliveries, there's lay-by opposite, which is restricted, so people can't, there's no waiting there, and it's for unloading and loading only. Ideally, that would be policed, because people do park in there and they shouldn't be parking in there, but there is an available slot there for, say, the Amazons and the UPSs of this world, DHLs, etc., Tesco delivery, to pull in there and deliver to these units. The disabled units are all on ground floor. That's right. If we sought a lift into this building, obviously that's space hungry, and we would have pushed out the footprint and the scale of this development even further into the plot, and that would have had a knock-on effect either side of the property. So I think that would have probably made, but 4 units out of the overall 12 is a pretty good rate of disabled possibilities for their accommodation there. I think that was it. If it's not, just let me know.
I got Rod. I got 2 more speakers, Rod. I got Councillor Spancic, please, and then Councillor Denny. John, when you're ready, please.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, welcome this development. It's great to see, accommodation, 1-bedroom apartments, and there's 12. But I think, from a highway authority point of view, we got a little bit wrong on this one. I'm not saying there should be parking for all 12 apartments, but shouldn't there be at least some parking, whether it's for deliveries to stop them when people moving in, parking on the main roads, they can deliver things from the back, the rear entrance or the side entrance. It just seems to be trying to squash too much into a space. If we need some amenity space, if we need to fit in with placemaking, they need the bin stores and their own little storage shed outside, and they need to have a bit of green space to get out, even put washing lines at the back there. But I think it's a mistake not to have some parking space, and I feel that's a major flaw. There's going to be people out there, 12 apartments. Some people will definitely have cars and they'll have to park them somewhere. I know that's not ideal and not what we should be trying to encourage people to use the public transport and all that, but the public transport is not brilliant. And some people moving in there will have cars and they will have to park them somewhere. We can't ignore that fact. And I think that it's a mistake that there's not at least some parking space in there. We take a lot of space taken up with bin stores and storage sheds, but no appreciation of the fact that real life people will have cars living there. Some will.
Thank you, John. Councillor Denny, please.
Thank you, Chair. I won't put my camera on because my internet's a bit glitchy and I don't want it to cut me off. I was just saying, especially with our, placemaking we had yesterday, and I understand what they're saying about, using the materials for the property, but I think there are some elements that could possibly included. If you have a look at the Google Street View image that is part of the report, there's quite a detailed, intricate sort of stonework along the top of the windows and the front-facing aspect of the building. Would it be possible something that could be included, and possibly included as well, not necessarily on the top as it is in the photos, the semicircle cutout, but that sort of design incorporated into the wall itself with some stonework? I just think there should be some key elements of the original building sort of inlaid with the new one, which I think would be a lot more acceptable in keeping the history, but then also, I can understand the need for the modern building, but mixing what is around there at the moment and what is there currently, I think would probably be a good way forward. And, I just think more of the facade of it should be in keeping with some of the aspects of the building that's there now. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Rod, I got another one more speaker now, and they can do the 3 again then. Councillor Graham, please.
Thank you, Chair. Just 2 quick points. One is about the parking. Why haven't we looked at underground parking under this development? Right, I know it's an extra cost, but we should have looked at that. And secondly, can't we move a condition that all ground floor flats in this property are for disabled only, so they don't need a lift? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Grammer. Rod, when you're ready, please.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Thank you, councillors. Parking in the first instance, yes. As I mentioned earlier, the good thing about this basically a brand new scheme is any future inhabitants will know exactly that there will not be any parking spaces available to them. So if they have a car, they'll have to look for somewhere else to park it, and if they decide to dispense with it. If we did have 3 off the back, it would be on an unadopted lane access. It would encourage traffic up and down that lane to the detriment of highway safety and the existing residents who use that lane at the minute. And you'd get a situation where you'd probably drive down there on the off chance that one of the 3 spaces or 2 spaces or whatever might be free. They're both full, end up having to turn around and come out to that access. So the best, from our point of view, the best situation is not to encourage any form of on-site parking. In terms of undercroft parking, you're right. It is cost, and we have to take that into account. It's viability at the end of the day, and it is housing association. So if we'd have insisted on undercroft, they'd have had to do a lot of earthworks, obviously, and in terms of the footprint of the building as well, I'm not sure there would have been enough space anyway to provide enough parking for all 12 flats. Plus, I wouldn't be too sure that highways would be too happy having effectively an access with no real visibility space going in and out of that site. So it would cause more of an issue than not having any parking on site whatsoever. Right. The other thing was, yes, there's a condition. The Glamorgan Gwent Archaeological Trust have asked. They didn't feel it was that necessary to retain a lot of the features in the building within the new building, and they asked for a condition for a building record of all the features on the building to be recorded and put on record, except so everyone knows what was there. But I take your point. There must be not so much of a plaque, but there must be some sort of element in the building historically that the new scheme could incorporate without making it too twee or pastiche, incorporated into the especially the front of the building, just to give a nod, so to speak, to its past and to the tradition in that area. So we'll investigate that with the agent, and we'll take it from there. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Rod. Thank you, members. Did anybody move in a second, please?
I'll formally move it, Chair, but the officer Rodri hasn't come back on the issue. I've asked a question about the 4 flats on the bottom for disabled people.
Sorry, Vice Chair. Yes, I knew something would slip my mind. I think it's probably best for me if I answer each member individually rather than 3 at a time. But we'll. You're right. There was. They are designed to be for disabled use. Whether or not we can actually stipulate that they must be, I think, by design and by the fact that there are no lifts within the scheme, that they will be. If there is a demand by a disabled future resident for this type of unit, then they will get, obviously, first dibs on those ground floor flats. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Roddy. And I'll formally move it, Chair.
Thank you, Richard.
Thank you, Chair. I was just wondering, considering Rodri's comments just now, I understand that he said he's going to work with the developer, maybe add some of those things, but would it be worth putting a recommendation into this that is looked at and it is a consideration of using aspects of the current property within the facade of the newer one? And if it is a reasonable to put on there, then I would like to propose that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Rod, let me come back again, please.
Oh. Sorry, Chair, there's things popping up on my screen, so I couldn't get to the button to switch myself back on. Yes, we could probably look at adding a condition for us to agree some scope for including some of the features or reclaiming some of the features of the existing building and incorporating them into the building. Obviously, that'll depend on the construction of the building, but if I try and share the photo and zoom in on this, if I can, you know, it's elements, perhaps something like the finial at the top or something like that, that could be kept as a bit of a, there's no real plaque or anything like that or a sign on the building that we could potentially incorporate, but we could put a condition on, Chair, to formalize that investigation of whether or not we can add some of these features into the design of the building. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Rod. I got no more speakers. All in favour?
Chair, can I come in, mate? Councillor Granville moved, but I didn't hear a seconder. Could somebody second it, please?
I'll second.
Second.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Right, Councillor Baldwin, want to come back, please?
Yeah, sorry, Chair. I was trying to put my hand up, but I'm not getting. It's not. I don't know whether it's things are getting a bit glitchy, as Councillor Dendy said. It's just in relation to the front elevation of the property, and appears to be a bit more modern than the rear of the building, and perhaps with the stone and the aluminium cladding, perhaps doesn't lend itself to remembering the facade as well as the back of the building does. But I just like to support what Councillor Dendy said, that maybe perhaps the aluminium cladding is on the back of the building, and something more of a remembrance is on the front of it. But yeah, I just support it. What Councillor Dendy said. Thank you.
Thank you, Stuart. Right. I got no more speakers. All in favour of the recommendation? Aye.
Yes.
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Chair, if I may, with regret, I have to leave for another meeting, if that's okay.
Thank you very much, Councillor. You take care.
Thank you. Cheers, bye.
Fair. Item 12, all these unit, 1 Thimby Walk, Thimby Road, Maesteg. Ailey, when you're ready, please.
Thank you, Chair. For the purpose of the recording, I'm Hayley Kemp and I'm the Principal Planning Officer. Good afternoon, members. This application seeks to vary Condition 1 of the previously approved application to allow the store to unload deliveries from the approved time of between 7 AM and 8 PM, Monday to Sunday, to unload deliveries to the new hour proposals of 5 AM to 10 PM, Monday to Sunday, daily at the Aldi store, Unit 1, Limby Walk, Limby Road, Maesteg. The applicant's agent has advised that this is required in response to the demand for greater operational flexibility in the hours of unloading deliveries at the store and to meet the needs of the customer. The application now seeks permission to vary Condition 1 to allow the store to unload deliveries between the hours of 5 AM and 10 PM daily. Concerns were raised by the local ward member, town council and local residents to the proposal regarding the detrimental impact of noise and traffic on the local residents as a result of the proposal to extend the delivery times. No highway safety concerns have been raised in relation to the proposal, so the main issue to consider in this application is the impact on the neighbouring amenities. Following further consultation with the council's noise officer, it was considered the proposal of 5 AM was unacceptable due to its close proximity of the application site to the neighbouring properties of Linby Road, and suggested a 12-month temporary period would be more acceptable for the hours of 6 AM to 10 PM Monday to Saturday, but to retain the hours of 7 AM till 8 PM on a Sunday. The applicant's agent stated that due to the relaxation of the planning restrictions for supermarkets during the pandemic, they have made deliveries to the site before 6 AM on occasions. However, they have not been able to demonstrate that the deliveries had frequently occurred between 5 AM and 7 AM during the spring and summer months when the weather is warmer and residents are more likely to have windows open. Whilst the Council's noise officer has suggested a 12-month temporary period, following further consideration by the LPA and in view of the restrictions imposed by the pandemic, it is considered that a 6-month temporary period would be more appropriate in order to allow the applicant to gather additional evidence required over the summer period. Therefore, members are advised that a temporary 6-month period, which covers March to September, to allow deliveries to the site between the hours of 6 AM to 10 PM Monday to Saturday, and retain the current hours for delivery to the store on Sunday from 7 AM to 8 PM and bank holidays is considered more acceptable, as this will allow the applicant to record the delivery information and enable the local authority to review the effect of an early morning delivery on the residential amenities of the neighbouring properties. Therefore, the application is recommended for approval for a temporary 6-month period, subject to compliance with conditions contained within the agenda pack. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Bertie. Have I got to move in a second, please?
I'll formally move, Chair.
Thank you. I've got no speakers. All in favour of the recommendation? Oh, hang on. Wait, Stuart, please.
Thank you, Chair. Sorry. Again, you're a bit quicker than I'm able to get than I'm able to raise my hand, so to make sure I get that. I'm not actually in favour of this, of supporting this, to be honest. I appreciate the officer's advice and that it could be recommended, but all of us know that, and I appreciate that we're in difficult times and deliveries, but to move even for a 6-month period to have deliveries in relation to this. But no, I actually object to this recommendation, and I'm quite happy to leave it at that.
Have we got a second? Amanda Williams, please. Me bring Amanda in now.
Well, I was going to say the same. I've got concerns. I mean, 5 o'clock on a Sunday morning, we had the conditions originally put forward. You can see the old conditions for a reason. So I don't know why we're now going back on our conditions. I mean, we've been discussing certain proposals on other applications today that we've spent hours and hours talking about conditions and the importance of having those conditions there. And now it just puts all of those conditions on every report we discuss up in the air in the future, that we can just take them away if we want. And I know if I lived there, I wouldn't want lorries delivering at 5 o'clock in the morning. Thanks.
Thank you, Amanda. Councillor John Spanzik, please.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, similar. The current operation is 7 AM till 8. I can understand operating a bit later till 9 or 10 o'clock in the morning, but moving it any earlier than 7, I personally, again, not happy with. Even, it's 5 o'clock. I think the recommendation now is 6 o'clock in the morning. I still think that's too early for large HGVs to be rolling outside domestic properties. But I can live with the sort of 9 or 10 o'clock at the evening, longer in the evening, but not the earlier than 7 o'clock. So I would not support this recommendation.
Yeah. Councillor Sturman, please.
Thank you, Chair. I also would not support this recommendation. I wouldn't want to live next door or even near anywhere that was having deliveries at 5 o'clock in the morning. It's totally unreasonable in my opinion. Thank you.
Can I come in, please? I think we need to be in the real world, yeah? It happens 5 in the mornings. And it's been like this for years, it happens 5. Going to Philco's and the new shop here is Arctics everywhere here. But we got to put up with it. If you want employment, that's what you got to put up with. If you don't want to shop there, so it's up to you. But anyways, Jonathan, you want to come in, please?
No, sorry, Chair. My hand is still raised, and I do, and I would like to come back on that. I think we do live in the real world, and we have just had a discussion yesterday about place shaping, and place shaping is about making sure that we meet the needs of the whole community. And I don't even support Councillor Spanswick's approach to be able to push it to maybe 9 or 10 o'clock at night. From 7 o'clock till 8 o'clock at night gives them 13 hours to be able to deal with deliveries. And I appreciate that some others are delivering maybe around 24 hours in the larger Tesco's and stuff. And this site, this unit was actually built in amongst residential. So some people have actually been chose to live there before this was developed. So I think it is living in the real world, and we all know what it's like at even 6:45 or 7 o'clock in the morning when the recycling lorry comes along and is dumping glass into the back of its truck. So I stand by my original one that I do not support this. I'm sorry.
Thank you, Stuart. We bring Councillor David Lewis in.
Thank you, Chair.
Bring Jonathan in, please.
I live in Sarn, and throughout the night I hear traffic on the motorway and on the A463, and it's something we got to live with nowadays. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Jonathan, please.
Thank you, Chair. First of all, apologies. I didn't introduce myself, and I spoke earlier on for the benefit of the recording. I'm Jonathan Parsons. I'm the Group Manager for Planning and Development Services. I think the context of this application is quite important, members. It's in the report. You will also see that when the COVID crisis started almost a year ago now, that the minister instructed all planning authorities to look at taking a pragmatic approach when dealing with extension of operational hours for food retail in particular, and the reason being is that we needed to keep those supply lines open and keep the stores stocked, and that there was an imperative to do that. And we brought this to committee fairly early on in the crisis. That's not to say that we accept carte blanche that they can deliver all they want, but at the moment they do have by virtue of the minister's letter and the amendment to certain regulations, they can operate more or less when they want. I agree that 5 o'clock in the morning as a permanent or a semi-permanent condition is probably not acceptable, and I know that this is a town centre site, but there is residential properties very close by, and in order to compromise, and in view of the ongoing COVID crisis, we're aiming to regularise this for a very short period of 6 months to allow operation at 6 o'clock or deliveries at 6 o'clock, which is an hour earlier than what they're allowed to do under their permanent consent. And this is in line with the spirit of the guidance and the advice that we have received from Welsh Government. And it's not an ideal situation, but I'm sure that after that 6 month period and the crisis hopefully is over and we all get back to some sort of normality, then there'd be no need to change those operational hours. So that's a bit of the background to that, to why this is in front of you today.
Thank you, Jonathan. Amanda, did you have your hand up?
I did, but then Jonathan just answered what I was going to ask.
Thank you very much. David, you finished speaking? Could you take your hand down, please? Thank you. I got no more speakers. I've had a move and a seconder. No, then. Rodney?
Yeah. Chair, yeah, sorry, Chair. I think in view of the speakers, perhaps we better do this again by a sort of a named thing by going through the vote. So if we can get Marilyn to call out the members, and give me a second. And again, just to make clear what we're voting for here, it's been moved and seconded, which is a recommendation to approve and amend these hours for just 6 months. There's been no amendment proposed to that. So it's simply, if you're in favour of the recommendation, it's for. If you're against, it's against, and clearly if you want to abstain. So if I can ask Meryl to start, please.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Baldwin.
Thank you, Chair. And in relation to the position that we're at and the time that we're at in relation to restrictions being lifted, I am against this proposal.
Councillor Blundell.
Against. Thank you, Meryl.
Councillor Collins.
I'll be for the recommendations, Meryl.
Councillor Dendy.
Against.
Councillor Edwards. I think he may have left the meeting, has he?
Yeah, I think he's.
Yeah,
I think
he's
gone from
left.
the meeting, yeah.
Okay. Councillor Granville.
For.
Councillor David Lewis.
For. Thank you, Meryl.
Councillor Janice Lewis.
Against.
Councillor Radcliffe.
I believe he's also
Gone.
gone from the meeting.
Okay. Councillor Spansick.
Against.
Councillor Sturman.
Against.
Councillor Thomas.
For. Thank you, Meryl.
Councillor Watt.
For.
Councillor Webster has left, so Councillor Amanda Williams.
Against.
Okay, thank you. So that was 5 for and 7 against, Chair. So that proposal is lost. The recommendation has been defeated.
Thank you,
So,
members.
I don't know if John wants to come in.
Johnson.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. In line with our protocols, this matter needs to be brought back to the next Development Control Committee meeting with the reasons for that refusal, and perhaps from the committee we can have a volunteer to lead on devising those reasons.
Thank you, Johnson. Right. Item 13, please appeals. Johnson, stay where you are, please.
Sorry, Chair. I just think that Jonathan asked for a volunteer in